Okay, I'm streaming again. For some reason, it keeps wanting me to go through Asia or Korea as opposed to somewhere closer by. So I don't know what's going on with Twitch tonight. I apologize. This is probably gonna be one of the cruddiest streams you've ever watched. Sorry about that. So dumping into the pot, and now we're done with that. And I just make sure. Oh, okay. That probably has something to do with it. My VPN protector is on. See, I need to disable that. There we go. That should clear a lot of things up. All right. So now my favorite part is I'm going to get 2 ounces of whiskey. 2 ounces of whiskey. So let's get that out of the freezer. Okay, so I had my, I'm getting pop-ups everywhere now. Everybody's upset with me. This is the, I like using honey whiskey because it just kind of gives the caramel a little bit of extra oomph at the bottom. But I also use Jack Daniels. So 2 ounces, got my measuring cup here. And I want, which line do I want? I want this line here. Now 2 ounces is a quarter of a cup, so if you don't have one of these fancy measuring cups, you can just do a quarter. I'm going to pour that in there. And I got just barely an ounce. So I'm really glad I bought the additional bottle, because I was afraid that there wouldn't be enough. And I was right, and I got it in the trash can. Go me. Now we pop this bad boy open. Oh, this whiskey smells so good. Okay, now there is an old adage when cooking with alcohol, where they tell you don't cook with anything that you wouldn't drink. And this rule is more for when you're doing like cooking with wine or sherry or stuff. Don't ever buy the cooking wine or cooking sherry or that sort of thing off the shelf, because there's going to be so much salt in it. It's going to be awful. I do kind of get down because you don't want to waste alcohol. And there. We got 2 cups of alcohol, 2 ounces of alcohol, not 2 cups. Oh dear God, I can't even imagine what would happen if you did that. And you pour it right into your pan with everything else. And then a little bit for the chef. Salute. Salute. Cheers. Oh, that's smooth. That is so smooth. I forgot to get my vanilla out. I'm bad. I'm terrible. I'm awful. Put that there. Lar. Using this one. And I am going to measure this because I am a stickler. Just need a teaspoon. Hello. I got my teaspoon. And I am twisting and twisting and twisting. Got 8 whole viewers. Wow. And 1 teaspoon straight into your pot with everything else. All right. And next is a 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. Now, kosher salt is not fluoride or iodide or whatever in it, and it's a lot coarser. Or you can get fine grade kosher salt. I usually keep a 1/4 teaspoon in this, or actually an 1/8 of a teaspoon. But okay, 1/4 teaspoon. There we go. Everybody's happy. Stick that right back in there. Salt. Take that there. All right. That's my battery. And then we put it on the stovetop. Mom is over there tasting or sniffing or something on the hot fudge. I'm going to give this a quick stir. Yeah. All right. So we got that. I got it at medium because basically you just want to heat it until the butter is melted and everything is kind of melded together. Yes, run my chat. Quit complaining. Run the chat. All right. So we're heating it till the butter is melted and everything is melted together. In the other pan, we're going to put a cup and a half of sugar, which I know is a crap ton of sugar, but these are caramels. You know, this isn't a health food. So yeah, go for the full cup and a half of sugar. So we're going to do that pot here.
Would you like a sampling of what the hot fudge on the pastry looks like?
Oh yeah. So the Memsy is getting ready to do a sample of what the hot fudge and the caramel looks like. That's a third of a cup. I need a half cup. Where's my half cup? There's my. Does that half? Yeah, that's half. Okay, so here we go. Ooh, isn't that beautiful? That's gorgeous, guys. And because I love you guys so much, I'm going to keep cooking, and I'm not going to eat any just yet. So, a cup and a half of sugar. Just going to get right in there. Put your sugar. I got a huge sugar canister, which I normally pull out, but I got so many cords running around for the laptop and whatnot. 2, 3. Yeah, for those of you who can't math, a cup and a half of sugar is 3 half cups. Alright, so we got the sugar in there. And then normally what I do, because you need some water, let me put the lid back on the sugar thing. Alright, we need a quarter cup of water. So I got this awesome silicone squishy thing. I'm going to do a quarter cup in that. And I use filtered water because I'm lame. Yeah, if you want to drink it. I don't drink tap water. I don't cook with tap water. Put a quarter cup. If you put a little more than a quarter cup in here, that's fine. We're going to be cooking the water off. Now, the secret to candy making is that the density of your candy, like how firm it is the amount of liquid or water that you've cooked out of it. So, even if you put a whole lot of water in here, you don't want to put too much because then it'll take forever to cook. But you can put a little extra; it'll get cooked out. And then we need a quarter of a cup of there it is, a quarter of a cup, right, of light corn syrup. There's my cup. Now this is the most awesome measuring cup ever. This is great for things like corn syrup and peanut butter, anything that normally gets really sticky. And you just move your measurement like that, and then you fill with whatever you need, and then when you're ready to use it, push it out and scrape it off. And you don't have to deal with, trying to do like we did earlier with the sweetened condensed milk where you're scraping and scraping and scraping, trying to get every last bit out. Right. So we got that. We put the cream back. Cream back. And I need to grab light corn syrup. Okay. Now you may be tempted, as I was initially when I first started candy making, to use like a cheap generic version of corn syrup because corn syrup can be pretty pricey. You'll see a lot of times I do use a lot of generic items because most of the time, Twitch is being weird. Yeah, Twitch is being really obnoxious today. But yeah, I use name brand corn syrup because if you look at the ingredients label, get in the habit of looking at the ingredients labels for things that you're using to consume. The generic corn syrups aren't just corn syrup. There's like a bunch of other stuff in it. Now, I know there's some of you out there that's probably going, oh god, corn syrup, I've heard that's supposed to be terrible for you. Here's the thing. All things in moderation, first off. Second, you need a liquid sugar of some sort for your, let me give that a stir. Kind of forgot that was heating back there. You need a liquid sugar of some sort for your candies to help keep your candy from crystallizing during the cooking process. Because otherwise, it'll crystallize, and that's why when you make like fudge, the fudge has a different texture than, say, caramels. Caramels are very smooth. At least they should be very smooth if you've made your caramels correctly. Fudge is kind of gritty, and that is because of the difference in sugars that you put into them. You don't. I mean, you might use some liquid sugar, but you don't use quite as much as you do when you do caramels. Another example is hard candy. When you're making hard candy, you use a proportion of liquid sugar to hard sugar. And I'm just stirring this. You don't technically have to stir. I like stirring it because I like stirring. Once you get it stirred, though, you're not going to stir it anymore until towards the end. So once you get it stirred to your heart's content, and then just got to put it to the side and on. But yes, I was talking about hard candy. The proportion of liquid to dry sugar will also make the difference in the texture of your candies. As far as, have you ever bitten into a candy? Well, no, that's more of the some hard candies seem to be kind of slightly chewier than other hard candies. Um, part two is getting clean. There we go. All right. I'm changing my camera angle, which is why I'm changing this. But some hard candies you bite into, and they're kind of weird. Like they have a different tooth feel. Okay, that's not quite as nice as I was hoping, but it's still better than nothing. Um, so as you can see, we've got the cream back there. Let me change it back now so we can get a good look. Uh, yeah, okay. So we got the cream going. It's just kind of a light simmer. All the butter is melted. Everything is melded together, so I'm going to turn it off now and remove it from the heat because you don't want to scald it. It is cream. Cream will scald. And we're going to get started heating up the caramel, which I do at kind of a medium-high temperature. Oh, well, that's not good. Let me move this camera to the other side. Hi. You want to be able to see that, right? I'm just moving things on the fly here. Didn't realize I would do that. Um, anyway, so the proportion of liquid to dry sugar is going to adjust how the mouthfeel is when you put it in your mouth. Mouthfeel is like texture and that sort of thing, like when you bite into anything. Is it smooth when you bite? Is it grit when you bite? Does it kind of coat your mouth in a slight oil funkiness or whatever? Mouthfeel has a lot to do with how good things taste because your brain connects all these little dots. Your sense of smell, taste, feel, touch, that sort of thing. So this is going to take a while. So I'm going to sit here and talk about candy. I think I'll talk about cooking with alcohol. That is one of the presentations that I give at this convention I do. When you cook with alcohol, now there's kind of mixed bag, and there's a lot of myths out there about cooking with alcohol. But again, they're myths, and if you want an excellent show to watch, is to find one of Alton Brown's Good Eats and find his episode about cooking with alcohol. I do not recall off the top of my head right now what it's called because I usually have like a big slideshow presentation that I do. Oh, did you see my burner heating up over there? Yeah. Anyway, so he does it. I do this big slideshow presentation, and it kind of feeds me the information. But he does an excellent bit on cooking with alcohol, debunking myths, and everything else. One of the most widely held beliefs is that when you cook with alcohol, you're cooking all the alcohol out of the product, which is unfortunately not true. Fortunately, rarely do you use enough alcohol in a cooking process to make a difference. For example, I used 2 ounces of alcohol for this batch of caramels. And just from having made it, 27 million times, I know I wind up with about 1.25 pounds of caramels with only 2 ounces of alcohol total. So personally, I'm more concerned about the amount of butter and the amount of sugar in it than I am in the amount of, or in heavy cream than I am in the amount of alcohol. So I feed these kids all the time. It's not that big a deal. So if you're, now that's not to say that I'm, advocating feeding alcohol to everybody. I understand a lot of times that some people aren't comfortable consuming alcohol in any form, whether it's religious beliefs, personal beliefs, whatever. 100% behind it. If you don't want alcohol in your food, totally don't have to do it. I'm not going to judge you. That being said, you can't just not put alcohol in something because you don't know how it's going to affect the outcome of what you're making. I'm leaving up the big beef, that way I can keep an eye on my sugar substance in the background there. Um, what you're making, depending on what the alcohol's purpose is, can be changed by taking the alcohol out. As an example, the very first time I made this particular recipe for caramels, I was making it for a convention. I had never really made caramel before in my life. I never really made candy before in my life. I'd done a lot of cooking up to that point. So I decided I was going to make 4 batches. I was going to make it with and without alcohol, and with and without sugar, or with and without salt. I'm sorry, not sugar. I can't even imagine what caramels without sugar would be like. But with and without salt, because I understand not everybody likes salt on their caramels either. The first batch that I made, I didn't cook it long enough, and I wound up with caramel sauce. Uh, very, very tasty, very, very delicious, but not exactly what I was, aiming for. That was my very first batch of with alcohol caramel. The second batch that I made came out perfectly. A little on the softer side. I've since adjusted my recipe, but a little on the softer side. I'm not going to go into the whole tale of what happened to those caramels. But the third and fourth batches that I made, I took the alcohol out because these are supposed to be my non-alcoholic versions. I just used the exact same recipe, took the alcohol out, and this time when I made them, they wound up being like toffee, which, if you've ever had toffee, is basically caramel. You try to grab the towel without being seen on camera. Toffee is caramel, just cooked so that it's crunchy, which is perfectly fine if you like toffee or if that's what you're going for. But if you want caramel, that's totally not what you need. So I took that toffee and I cracked it up and I took it and fed it to people, and I thought it was fantastic. But see, here's the thing: I don't know if the toffee outcome was because I left the alcohol out or if it was because I overcooked it. Because at that time I was not using a digital thermometer. I was using just a sandy candy thermometer with a color line on it. And I didn't have a whole lot of experience with caramel, so I wasn't paying attention too much to what it was supposed to look like, and even if I was, I didn't understand everything that was going on. So since that point, anytime I want to make caramel without alcohol, I use a different recipe. I could probably experiment with this same recipe, just leaving out the alcohol, but I don't want to run into the chance. You can come and say hi. Hello, that's my nephew. We call him Loogie, or I call him Loogie. Say hi, Loogie. Hi. Okay. Um, okay. I'm talking about candy here. Uh, I don't want to waste the ingredients for making caramels when I know I have a good caramel recipe that doesn't use alcohol versus a good caramel recipe using alcohol. Um, but anyway, so you have to understand what the alcohol is doing in your recipe. Sometimes, go away, apple, I don't want to start your program. Sometimes the alcohol in your recipe is for flavor. Personally, I think, okay, so it's boiling in the background. I'll kind of move the pan a little bit, see if you can see that better. It is boiling in the background. We're going to boil that until it gets to a nice auburn color or amber color, a nice coloration. I'm going to back up a little bit so I can hang out here and keep an eye on it while chatting with you guys. But anyways, sometimes alcohol is in there just for flavor. I do suspect that with this particular recipe, the alcohol is there just for flavor for multiple reasons. But again, I don't mess with it with leaving it out because I have a perfectly valid recipe that does not use alcohol at all. It's a one-pot recipe. It doesn't make as much of a mess. Sometimes the alcohol is there and is actually doing a chemical reaction in your food, and by removing the alcohol, you no longer have that reaction and it won't do what it's supposed to do. For example, beer bread. If you make bread with beer, oftentimes that beer is acting as a leavening agent, where where you would normally use like yeast or baking soda or that sort of thing to help your bread rise. If you do beer bread and you leave out the beer or use like apple cider or something else, you're not going to have the same leavening agent, so your bread is probably going to be a brick. So just kind of keep in mind whenever you're doing substitutions in what you're making, whether it's with alcohol or whether it's with any other ingredient that you're making, what the purpose of that ingredient is. If you don't understand what the purpose is, by all means Google it. I love Google nowadays. When I first started out cooking, Google was not a thing because I was mid early '90s. Um, Internet wasn't a thing in general, and you just kind of experimented. Nowadays, it's like, I wonder. I want to make this one particular recipe of something that I've seen on TV, 3 years ago. Let me Google it and see if I can find a recipe. You find not only a recipe, but scores of people who have already tried it, and who can tell you what went wrong when they were making it. So yes, definitely Google it. If you have any questions, hit up Google. There is no shame in Google. Work your Google food. Work that Google magic. Google is there. It's a resource. Go for it. If you don't have Google handy, well then you probably don't have me here to listen to. So hey, six and one half dozen of the other. Um, but I love cooking. Cooking is fun. Taking a breather for a hot second. Literally hot second because it's really warm standing next to this stovetop. Oh, I wonder. I probably could do it on the other burner, and you may have a better view. But yeah. So what we're doing right now is we are cooking a lot of the water out of the sugar substance. We're making a sugar syrup. A lot of the water is going to cook out, and then it's going to start to caramelize. And by caramelize in this sense, we're talking about the color. The coloration is going to get darker. It's going to start browning. Now, these kinds of candies are not the kind that most candies are not the kind where you can set and forget. Set a timer, walk off, and everything will be fine. I'm still on air, right? I still have viewers. Yay! Let's talk dreams. Uh, it does not take a very long time for this to go from the lovely amber golden brown that we are looking for to awful, awful black sugar. And you usually don't realize that it has done that until you smell it, and by then it's too late. I have only burnt one batch of sugar syrup in my entire career, I guess you could say, of making caramels, and I've made hundreds of batches, like literally at this point. Um, I've only ever burnt one batch. Now, I'm kind of wondering if this thing is picking up other outside noise. Anyway, and of course, it was ruined sugar. I had to dump all that sugar. Corn syrup is not especially cheap, especially if you buy the name brand. So I tend to watch it like a hawk nowadays. I got a new counter light. I broke the light bulb setting up tonight. Great for me, right? Um, let's see, what else can I talk about? Candy making. So the funny thing about candy making is it wasn't really.
Ow! Damn!
Oh, cool! Thank you, Rachy Rock. Ratchy Rock. Reminds me of Fraggle Rock, just because it's got a rock in it. But there's probably a big delay too. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, candy. Candy. This is funny. The presentations that I give a entire section on the history of the industrialization of candy making, because candy, as we know it today, was not really a thing until the Industrial Revolution. Long a Ratchy Rock, yay! Um, anyway, yeah, candy was not a thing until the Industrial Revolution because the Industrial Revolution brought in machinery that was not only able to process sugarcane to make sugar a regular, readily available thing to the common people, but it was also able to, industrialize the making of candy. So where prior to the Industrial Revolution, sugar was one of those things that really only rich people had. Um, So most commoners, like they fruit was sort of a delicacy as well. But they would do a lot of fruit-based candies and jellies and that sort of thing. But like hard candies, sugar candies, things that used a lot of sugar, that was rich folks did that, and they took care of all that, and it just candy was always a grown-up experience until you get to the point where they were able to I'm getting dressed. I get distracted very easily. I apologize now. Call me squirrel. Um, until they were able to get to the point where they could mass produce and sell it to anyone who wanted it. And even then, for a while, it was still a grown-up kind of thing. The first hard candies were actually medicines. They were like cough drops, lozenges were created. The machineries for that were created to be able to make um, cough drops for adults, not really for young people. And eventually, it became more of a thing to market to everyone else. So nowadays, where we see candy is like it's a kid's thing. A few hundred years ago, it was the highest of high to have yourself a big bowl of spun sugar or whatever else. It's just it boggles my mind how much candy has changed. I don't do a whole lot of talking about chocolate. I could talk about chocolate, but it's not one of my specialties because chocolate making is so particular. You get down into the different cocoa beans and the different plants and where they're grown and the different nuances of flavor and the amount of milk and sugar and everything else that you're adding into it. But there are other people much more experienced with that sort of thing that talk about it, and I have the residual knowledge in my head from doing research for candy making. I want to say it was about 5 years ago. I should have a bowl of sugar. Oh yes, ice cream. Definitely go have some ice cream. Ice cream is awesome. I know the rest of my family is having ice cream with hot Dutch sauce, which I just got done making at the start of this stream. Um, but yeah, about 5 years ago, I made that very first batch of salted whiskey caramels for a convention, and that one was actually called Upstate Steampunk. Now we're starting to get there. It's harder to tell because the lighting in here is so much brighter than normal. Let's swirl it lightly. Okay, you don't have to worry if you don't get it quite dark enough. The important thing is that you do get it somewhat dark. So I'm going to go ahead and add the cream now. Okay, so when I add this cream, watch carefully. Stand back and watch carefully. It will bubble. This is why I use a pan that is so much bigger than the sugar. Because it likes to bubble. And then you give it a good stir to make sure you incorporate all that syrup at the bottom. Don't stir too much. You don't want to agitate it too much. Because that's how your sugar crystals start forming. But there we go. We get that done. Get that stuck off to the side. I'm going to turn my thermometer on. I don't want softball. I'm putting in a hardball. I actually put mine to 248. Hardball on this is 250, but I'll set it to 250 because then it will go off sooner than I need it. You have to make sure that you don't put your thermometer too far down, because if your thermometer is touching the bottom of the pan, it will give a false reading. It will say it's too hot. But if it's too far up, it will also give a false reading and it will say it's too cool. So either way, you have to make sure it's just kind of in there just right. I'm going to go down for a second because I need to get a baking pan. I will keep talking. It's very important to make sure you get the position of your thermometer just right. I'm going to show you guys this pan. You get 8x8 or 9x9 or really any size that you want. See how dented this pan is? I have been using this pan and 3 others just like it for the last 5 years making caramels. Because once you're going to screw up the pan, you may as well stick with it, right? Then you spray it with some canola oil. Make sure you spray it pretty well because your caramels will stick. And I just have that set to the side ready because as soon as my thermometer goes off, or right about where my thermometer goes off, I'm going to have to dump it into the pan pretty darn quickly. Now this is another point where you can kind of just step back and not pay too much attention. I tripped over this very long cable in my. Not pay too much attention to it. As long as you keep an ear out for when that thermometer goes off, because once that thermometer goes off, a difference in a couple of degrees will make the difference in your candy. 2 degrees too low, and it will be very soft. The first, or actually the second batch of caramel, I told you the first batch of caramel I made was so soft it was sauce. The second batch, when it came straight out of the fridge, was too firm. But after it sat for a good while, it was too soft. So it was kind of one of those things where you had to take it out, let it sit just enough. When I first gotten it, I put it onto a cutting board. And I started cutting it on the cutting board. I cut it in long strips, right? I got about 3 strips in, and I realized it was kind of sticking to the cutting board because it was so soft. So I put it back in the fridge on the cutting board because that's what it was still in. It was still on the cutting board. And this is why I cut it in the pan now. Eventually took it out of the fridge, put it on the counter, start cutting into it, but now it's like stuck to the cutting board. So here I am, attempting to pry it off the cutting board, just little by little. And I'm getting towards the end, I gave it one particularly firm pry, and it pops off, flips over, and lands on the floor. Now, I'm not saying my floor is dirty, but we have cats and kids, and we cook. And I'm sorry, but there's no amount of mopping you can do for me to feel comfortable eating something that's sticky off the floor. So, I'm making my mother gag in the background here. So, yeah, probably about 4/5 of a batch of caramel wound up going in the trash can. I had 3 long strips that I cut off that were still on the cutting board. Everything else went in the trash, and I cut those, and everyone ate them, and they were delicious. But yeah, that's why I cut in the pan now. And then if it gets too soft, the whole pan goes back in the fridge. And then if it gets too hard, the whole pan just sits out. Oh man, it is heartbreaking when you drop food or drop anything. Especially if it's something you were really, really looking forward to. Pizza is terrible. Especially did it go face down? I bet it went face down. Yeah, and then you had the whole mess to deal with. Just. We also have like mats in front of our sink and in front of our stove, so it bounced off the mat in front of the stove. And again, you can wash those things all the time, but still, you could, you know. Oh, that's my thermometer going off. Okay, now it's 2:48. Take that out. I'm going to pour. See how quickly I moved and did that? Because I know if it gets to 250, it's going to be way too brittle. Alright, so you pour it out, and then you take it. I'm kind of off here to the side of the sink. You guys can't really see me. I'm going to add some water to it. Now, the beauty of caramel, the caramel pot, is it does wash up rather easily. You would think all that hard candy is going to stick it up and be just terrible to eat off. But it dissolves rather well. So I usually just put it in the sink, fill it with some water, and actually I usually wash it rather quickly because I do, when I make caramels, I tend to make 5 or 6 batches at a time. Turn that off. Grab my timer here. Clear. 1, 2, 3. Okay. You gotta let it set for 10 minutes before you put the salt on top, because otherwise it's going to, if you don't let it set for 10 minutes, Yeah, yeah. If it lands pressed down, you just brush it off and pretend like it didn't happen. 5 second rule, right? You know, there are some things I'm okay with the 5 second rule. But then there's other things. This is like no, no. If it leaves any residue on the ground after you pick it up, there's no telling what else was in what you sewed up. We wait 10 minutes and then we sprinkle salt on top, and then we're all good to go. Yeah. What was I talking about? I was talking about something. Oh yeah, I usually make like 3 or 4 batches at a time. 4 batches because I have 4 pans, and put them in the fridge, and then do them. Because for those of you who are into Rooster Teeth, I do attend RTX. I am a guardian. I've been a guardian for the last 3 years. This will be my 4th year guardianing. Um, I usually work tech team, but one of the things I swear to God, this is probably why they keep bringing me back. I make about. Is that my hair? That's my hair, guys. How's my hair doing that? I'll talk about that in a second too. I usually make almost literally 30 pounds of caramel every year to take to RTX with me. Luckily, I drive, so it's not that big a deal. Um, Sweet freelancer. They don't call that freelancer anymore. I can't remember what they call it, like tech support or something. Or maybe they do still call it freelancer. Maybe it's security I'm thinking of that they no longer call security. I don't know. Again, brain like a sieve. The amount of information I retain versus the amount of information I should be retaining. I don't know. But yeah, 30 pounds. When you figure in each batch is about a pound and a quarter, that's a whole lot of batches. And we wrap them by hand. I do have cellophane wrappers that I don't think I will have time tonight to wrap them, so to show you the wrapping process. But I do myself and my sister wrap them by hand and bring all those caramels with us. Last year, part of I did a fundraising event for a new button press because I also like to make these little buttons, the little quarter 1 1/4 inch pin buttons that everyone thinks are so cool. I like making them for the Guardians as a way to say thank you. You guys are awesome because it is a volunteer position. You don't get you don't get paid for volunteering to be a Guardian. But anyway, and I raised money for a button press, and one of the rewards was to get caramels, and several people got caramels. I probably made about a dozen pounds of caramel just for rewards last year, on top of everything else that I make. Um, so usually when I'm making caramels, I'm making back-to-back batches, which means in between, doing that, I run over there, fill it with hot water, wash it, and try to ignore the scalding knuckles that I get, and then throw it back on the stove to dry out and move on to the next batch of caramels. And boy, that's a little nerve-wracking. But you have to wait 10 minutes from pouring it into the pan because otherwise you'll put your salt on top and it'll just dissolve right in, which isn't a problem if all you're looking for is, salted caramels. But if you want to have the nice crystals hanging out on top of your caramel, you do want to wait 10 minutes to give it a chance to cool off a little bit. Um, And the other side of it is that it's really easy to oversalt it if you can't see how much salt you're putting on it. And there is a fine line between salted caramel and salty caramel. And any of you out there who enjoy salted caramels probably know that line that I'm talking about. Let's see, what am I going to do next? I'm going to do a variation of chashu, which is a marinated pork belly that is usually served on ramen. I'm also going to do some shoyu eggs, or shoyu tamago, shoyu eggs, which is, again, a marinated egg, typically eaten with ramen. That's why I've got the, that needs to be in the sink. In the sink. That's why I got this. I can actually change my camera angle, so let's do this real quick. And then, yeah, change my camera angle. There we go. There's the timer. Okay. Oh, watch the timer with me. Haha. And immense love for salted butter caramel. Oh, okay. These caramels, yeah, they do have the whiskey flavor. Um, oh god, that sounds so amazing. It really does. Um, Butter caramel would probably be just caramel made without adding any vanilla or anything else. Just letting the flavor of the butter and the cream in it, carrying it through. Uh, Typically, caramels are made with some vanilla because everyone's used to having some other caramel flavor to it. Um, Now, the reason they're called caramels and the reason they have the texture they do is because of the proteins in the butter and the cream when you add it in there at the end after the sugar syrup has you know gotten to the point that it's done. The proteins in those two things kind of become stretchier. The reason it was more runny and less set is because they didn't cook it to as high of a temperature. My guess is they probably cooked it to 220 or 225 because that would definitely make it much runnier and allow it to absorb into, oh god, the pancakes. I've wanted pancakes for like weeks now. One of my best friends who I work with, she's made it a running gag. She'll send me random pictures of things that are like blueberry pancake flavored. Be like, are these the pancakes you want? No, no, I do not want blueberry flavored Captain Crunch. I want a freaking pancake, a stack of pancakes. And unfortunately, tomorrow's Sunday brunch is going to be oatmeal and not pancakes, but that's okay. Um, but yeah, they definitely, most likely, they have pretty much the exact same ingredients, but they just cooked it for a lower temperature. I could have easily made caramel sauce just by not cooking it to 248, um, because the longer you cook it, the more water evaporates out of it, and the firmer the resulting product is. The more water you leave into it, obviously, it's going to be runnier. Oh, crepes and pancakes. You guys just talking about all these carbs. Oh, you're killing me. You're killing me here. Um, let's see. I need to find salt because the timer is getting pretty close. Uh, it depends on the type. For these ones, I actually like to use pink Himalayan for the salted honey. I also make two other kinds. I make one with the Crown Royal Maple, and those ones I like to use red Hawaiian salt. Um, and then for I do one with Captain Morgan's black, and I use black salt in that one. Um, but the really the salt on top doesn't matter. I very easily just use regular old white sea salt, which is probably what I'm going to wind up using here because I don't think I have any of the other ones. I haven't made any of the specialty caramels in a while. I'm in the pantry now. Can't see me. I swear. Let's see, what's on my salts? My salts. Oh no, I have for sale Trader Joe's. Um, let's see. Now, technically, you're supposed to. Oh yeah, that'll work just fine. Technically, you're supposed to use about a tablespoon of salt sprinkled over it, but I usually just eyeball it until I think there's enough salt on there. But definitely, you want to use whatever salt you're using. You want to use a coarser grade. You don't want to use like a fine salt because that will. Um, you could probably use. Well, I don't know. I know they're in pyramid shapes, but are they kind of like a chunk, or is it just the like it's slightly bigger than the standard grade of like Morton's table salt? Um, I need a spoon. Grab a spoon. Grab a spoon. Grab a spoon. Um, anything that's larger than the average course. If you want to use things that aren't quite as chunky, like this floor is so, I'm kind of hoping it doesn't dissolve too quickly. Yeah, about 22 seconds there. I would imagine sprinkle a little bit on there, and like if you make this recipe, sprinkle a little bit on there and see how quickly does it appear to dissolve, or does it appear to kind of just settle on the top of your caramel? If it dissolves quickly, then or seems to be sinking rapidly, then you're going to want to Yeah, we actually have salt grinders here, so we don't use a whole lot of like free stuff. But this Porticel is really fine. I'm gonna let it sit for 2 more minutes before I add that Porticel because it's really fine. Um, but yeah, we use like all sorts of grinders, and they're all set to different grinding mechanisms. So I'm not familiar with how a lot of like the just shaken out salts are. I like biting into a big chunk of salt. I'm a salt fiend. Um, when I was growing up, my mom had this set of salt rocks from a salt mine in Germany, and she would often catch me just sitting there licking on them. Eventually, she threw them away because the 3-year-old had been licking on her rocks, so that was kind of gross to her. But yeah, it was salt is just it's always been a thing of mine. That's why we have so many salts here. The majority of the salts we have are because I'm a fanatic. I have black salt and white pepper. I know it's one of those things. We're a very cookie family. Cookie family, is that a. I don't know if that's the term I'm looking for there. But I didn't even turn the timer on. Okay, let's see. What I'm going to do, I'm going to move the caramels over here so you can watch me salt them. Grab a couple hot pads. Because this pan is going to be hot. Mmm. Mmm, look at that. Move that a little bit. There we go. Okay. So, I usually just take my salt in a spoon like that. Ooh, wow. Okay. That's clumping a lot. Okay. So I'm not doing this very well at all, and I can see it's dissolving rather quickly. Yeah, that's as much I'm going to put in there, and I'm going to see if I can kind of. Yeah, no, it's not shaking. That was a mistake. Um, Yay, salted caramels. Mmm. Mmm. Uh, I have to look at that image later. I think I know exactly what you're talking about as far as the pyramid salt goes. But now, I usually let them sit about 20-30 minutes before sticking them in the fridge. Not necessarily because it needs to, but because my fridge prefers it. Everything else in the fridge does not like to be subjected to a scalding hot pan of caramels right next to it. Let's see. I think. Oh, I'm going to move these again out of the way. Now, if my camera was a better quality, you would be able to see them kind of separating away from the edge of the separating away from the edge of the pan as I shifted, and kind of wrinkling out the bit. So by the time I get done with the stream, those should be plenty ready for sticking in the fridge. They do need at least an hour in the fridge before you can start cutting them. However, if you were using it for sauce, you could let it sit for another 20 minutes and then start spooning it on the things. Let's see. I was going to do chashu pork next. Oh, I had a moment. What the hell is that line in the middle of my? It's the countertop. This is a corner counter. Like I'm standing here in the corner. I've been put in the corner. Okay, so I'm making chashu pork, shoyu eggs. The shoyu eggs I do like them soft boiled. Traditionally, eggs served with ramen is soft boiled. This is what it's all going to culminate into at the end of the evening is a bowl of ramen. So brace yourself. I'm not making ramen from scratch because real ramen made from scratch takes about anywhere between 24 to 36 hours to make the stock and the noodles and everything else, which that's far longer than the stream has. And most of that is just sitting there letting bones boil. But I will be using a pack of ramen after I get done making the chashu pork and the shoyu eggs. Traditionally, the eggs served with ramen are soft boiled. I'm going to walk you guys through soft boiling eggs. But if you prefer them to be hard boiled, by all means, hard boil your eggs before marinating them. So here we are. I'm rolling up my sleeves. That means we're getting to work, people. Getting to work. Um, get another pan for my soft boiled eggs. And I'm going to fill it with water. Again, I'm using filtered water because I am sad with that. Definitely know that's taking too long. I'm going to overcome my personal issues around the Now, the key to soft boiled eggs. Oh, shut up. That was my 10:15 alarm letting me know. Normally, I have a friend who calls me every night around 10:30, and 10:15 is the time that I need to wake up after I've taken a nap in the evening. That's pork belly for Ishmael. But I am obviously not doing it for the call because I'm hanging out with you guys. I'm only going to do 6 eggs. Just 6 grade A large eggs. You put your water to boil. You do want to bring your water to a complete boil before you put the eggs in. Because with soft boiled eggs, timing is everything. Like even a few, like 10 seconds longer than you wanted to put them in there will go from soft boiled to kind of medium boiled, which is just gross because then it's now they're soft and hard. Now the soft boiled eggs I'm going to make, I'm going to put them in for 6.5 minutes. I did them for 6:50, and the yolks were a little firmer than I liked them. I'm trying to figure out. Usually, you're supposed to use like a slotted spoon. None of my slotted spoons are really big enough. Maybe try that second again. Okay, that's what I'm going to use to put my eggs into my water once it comes to a boil. I have a marinade already made. This is going to look weird because I did actually make this the other day. I'm not going to put the marinade on it. I had planned this part out quite as well. The chashu pork, I am doing something that I've been told don't do. I'm making a recipe I've never made, something I've never really cooked, and having to adapt it. Because chashu pork is made with pork belly, and it's usually made with an entire block of pork belly that I was only able to find because I kind of waited till the last minute to do my shopping for this. I was only able to find sliced pork belly, so I have to adapt the recipe that typically uses an entire block in one big piece for slices. So, let's see, what else am I doing right now? Oh yes, I need to get my water bath ready. Because these eggs, as soon as their timer goes off, you take them out and you put them into an ice bath. Oh, excuse me. I think that whiskey's sneaking up on me. Okay, let's cool it off. That over here. This over here. Now, it's going to get loud. Or louder. I apologize. I've got to turn my ice maker on. It's nice. Okay, big old bowl of ice. Now that I've rattled your guys' eardrums, I'm going to put that in the sink. And close that particular cabinet. Alright, so normally I would be making the marinade for the eggs, but I already have some marinade made up. So I think I will make the marinade for the chashu, even though I'm not actually making the chashu just yet, because the eggs are going to have to sit in the marinade for a couple hours, or an hour or so. Let's see, where's my recipe for chashu? Okay. So, we're going to be using the sake. I can move this back actually. Move that back over there. Oh, it's magic. Give it to you. That just helps me remember what I'm doing where. So we got sake. We got soy sauce. We got sugar in the background here. You can see me tapping it right there. Again, my phone is not cooperating. I'm just going to turn the Wi-Fi off. My phone does not like connection to the Wi-Fi here. It's just annoying. Come on. Try again. Try again. There we go. That's not what I was looking for either. Clearing. Alright, so the marinade, there's a lot of different toppings here that I'm going to skip. 2-inch ginger sliced. Okay, I can show you guys that. Seasonings, water, sake, soy sauce, sugar. Okay, so got that. Need to get into this under cabinet so I can get a pan out. Don't mind the giant pots being suddenly revealed. I need that one. Okay. Oh, apple slices and blackberries, brown sugar. Oh, that does sound good. Just, fruit, cooked fruit, even if you don't add any sugar to it, like a little bit of sugar helps the juices come out better, but just warm fruit is really good, unless it's peaches and then that's gross. I don't do cooked peaches. It's just there's something happens to their texture. I'm not happy with it at all. Alright, so I have all my ingredients there, and all of there, and I'm still waiting for that water to boil. While I'm doing that, cutting board out. Need a chopping knife or a knife block.
Smells so good in here.
There's the caramel.
I don't know, I guess.
It's probably the caramel. Oh, we did make hot fudge earlier.
I can get something to drink, right?
Yeah. About to see my sister. This is the one that helps me make all the wrap all the caramels. And I got just a tiny little chunk of ginger, because that's all I really needed.
I just need no, I'll get a little cut.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I wasn't planning on getting anything out of that cabinet.
Yeah, you're wired up. What's up, you're actually making caramels? I thought you were gonna do the sauce.
No, I just made regular caramels. I said I could do the sauce, but no one else seemed interested in it. I bet you guys would have been interested in the sauce. What you get is basically the same recipe, just not cooked as long. Oh, I love green onions. And when I get to somewhere where I'm, I'll bring some more up there. Somewhere where I can grow some stuff, I'm definitely growing all the green onions I can eat. Oh, I forgot the ice bath was in there. Okay, so what we need for this, for the recipe, are get rid of those ends, just in the trash. And then we need that part right there for the recipe. And then this I'm going to use for garnish later. So I'm glad I didn't actually. Oh, that smells so good. And then we want to cut that in half. Okay. And that's for the braising part of the chashu. Well, hello. Sneaking over here. Can you do me a favor? Don't tell anybody. Like dropping a Coke Zero.
Yeah.
Okay, between me and you guys, I'm breaking. I've got a caffeine fast going.
Why am I not going to tell anybody?
Because I got a caffeine fast going.
There's no caffeine in here.
It's Coke Zero. There's no sugar in it. There's still caffeine.
Where?
I love Coke.
Oh!
Yeah, there's totally caffeine in Coke Zero. You have to get a diet caffeine free Coke if you want no caffeine.
Man!
Yeah, that's why I haven't been drinking any sodas yet.
Oh
everything
man, I wish
either.
I knew that. I would have taken them to work.
Anyway, okay, so I have to get my timer ready for 6.5 minutes. Alright, and I'm lowering the eggs into the water using this thing because you don't want to drop them in too hard and accidentally have them break, but you do want to get them in there quickly. Alright, 6.5 minutes, go! And that thing's done. And since it was just in water, I think. Alright, so that's cooking for 6.5 minutes. The other thing I'm doing. Alright, ginger. If you've never cooked with ginger, okay, so here's the thing in my family. I grew up, we ate, everything had garlic and onions in it, everything. You made mac and cheese, like just standard boxed mac and cheese. Whole garlic, a whole bunch of garlic and onions in there, stretched a little further. I'm the oldest of 5 kids. It's just the thing we did. Let's have that back. Here's a tip. If you've never cooked with ginger before, ginger has this paper layer on it. Oh, okay, there we go. I can't see well. It has like a paper layer on it. You want to scrape that off. Just get yourself a spoon, and then you waste less ginger this way if you just scrape it off using said spoon rather than cutting it off with a knife. Oh man, ginger. The smell of ginger. We got a ginger hanging out in the chat. Yay. Which I had totally not even thought about when I was preparing this recipe. But yeah, just scrape all that paper off, get all the little nubs, get all the little corners. Just get all up in there, get it all off. Which I guess you're not eating this, so you probably could leave the paper on. I call it paper, it's skin. Because ginger is a root, and all that paper is where it was in contact with whatever it was in contact with while it was underground. And I don't know, I'm just weird. I'm a terrible, terrible person. Okay. Okay, so I now have naked ginger. See how pretty and naked that is? Toss my spoon. Toss my trash. Still got 4 minutes, so we can start, cut you that way in half, so I run less risk of cutting my fingers off. Now, for someone who cooks a lot, I can't chop for crap. I am, very slow, methodical, and I know the proper technique for chopping, but I just can't bring myself to do it. There we go. That's one sliced. And this next part, slicing. Keep getting the green onions. Okay, come on. Okay. Alright, so, got all my ginger sliced, all my green onions chopped. I am covered in aromatics, and there's still 3 minutes left. So I'm gonna rinse my hands real quick after turning my faucet. So I'm gonna go into the ice bath. Dry my hands off. And okay, so see, I have a convention at the end of the month. It's called an Acrocon. I normally do 3 1-hour panels. The science and history of candy making, which is a 2-hour combined panel, also known as Sweet Alchemy, and Eat Your Drink, which is my cooking with alcohol panel, which is an hour long. And before every convention I do, for the entire month, I do a caffeine fast, but I'm going to be up way later than normal. I need some caffeine, so I'm downing a Coke Zero. I'm breaking my fast. I'm being terrible. I'm sorry. Oh my god, sweet caffeine. Oh, okay. So I'm gonna set that there. Um, that is the first caffeine I've had since the beginning of February. Yeah. Normally I start my day with a tall energy drink. Get to work for about an hour and a half, have a couple cups of coffee, and then just kind of progress my day like that. However, that makes conventions a bit of a pain because you can't have nonstop coffee intake without having to run to the bathroom. Yeah, cooking with timers. Hey, here's the thing. Depending on what you're making, you don't necessarily need a timer. I cook with timers for things that are very time sensitive, like the eggs, waiting on caramels. I also have a problem with like monitoring time. Like it's gotten a lot better since I've started working where I work because everything is timed where I work. So I've just started to instinctually understand what exactly the duration of like 5 seconds or 30 seconds or full minute is. But otherwise, I my concept of time, my concept of measurements in general is terrible. But there are certain things that you definitely need timers for, and understanding how long everything takes to prepare helps. So you can see me steaming in the background there. Got less than a minute on my eggs, so they're about to come out pretty quick. Um, but knowing how much time everything takes and planning meals, if you have like a lot of things you're preparing, yeah, it's definitely a lot less hectic. And then you don't run into the problem that you tend to run into, which is something is made and ready to be eaten far sooner than it needs to be eaten, and it winds up sitting while you go and prepare something else. Um, we do in my family, we do timelines for big meals like Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, that sort of thing. I say we, I mean my mother. Um, we don't really have much of a kitchen to do. Oh, eggs need to come out. Do not want to overcook my eggs. Okay, dumping the water, eggs into the strainer. Oh, okay. Empty the ice bath. And you telling me how? Oh, yeah, you were very hot. I dropped one in the sink, and man, was that baby hot. Okay, so that
Oh, I missed it.
that is all done.
Oh, see, Harrison.
And I can move this over here. Start. But yeah, so we time everything
Apparently they did all right.
to figure out, okay, so if the turkey's going to be done at this time, and we need to bake the stuffing, we need to bake the mac and cheese, we need to bake this and that. How much room do we have in the oven? How much do we need? Can we prepare beforehand, have kept in the fridge, and toss in the oven at a certain point so that everything kind of comes together at the same time and everything is fresh and ready to be consumed. But okay, so I'm going to heat that. Okay, I'm reading through the recipe. because even though I have read the recipe, I want to refresh it for high heat. Okay, so I'm going to get the pork belly now. I'm going to move this. I can toss this. I can put this away. Pork belly. Okay. So, as I said before, I was only able to find it sliced. So I have whole sliced pork belly here. It's a little over 3/4 of a pound, which is about what the recipe called for. It was only $4, so hey, that's pretty good. Fairly cheap. It is very fatty. Pork belly is basically bacon that has not been made into bacon yet. So if you like bacon, you're gonna love pork belly. So we got that. Ah, there. Okay, so that's pork belly. It's hot. Ooh, yes, it's getting very hot in my pan. Take my knife. Because I'm going to cut them down the middle. Just. Well, I should bring that cutting board back. Not even get a different cutting board. Do not do this with the knife. Do as I say, not as I do. Okay. Okay. Yep, just like bacon. This is thicker cut, but still kind of obnoxious to deal with. So the recipe says to take it, salt it. Oh, it is calling for a block. Take it, salt it, and then braise it on 2 sides, which I'm going to lightly salt. This is going to be cool. Watch this. Remember I was talking about how we have a bunch of grinders? Is that even salty? Oh, you know what? Oh my god, I forgot to take the lid off. So now I have like this big pile of salt on my lid. And lightly salt. Rub it. And put you like that. God, I'm making such a mess here, guys. I'm making such a mess. I'm terrible. Hey, no attention to chat. Oh, that's a really fatty piece. Okay. And like that. You know what? I'm just going to do like that with all the salt, okay? Okay. Put that back on. And I spilled some, so over the left shoulder it goes. Yes, I'm superstitious. Or at least I operate on the thought that it doesn't hurt. May as well be. Okay, so kind of salty. Everything's kind of salty now. I'm dropping pork and crap everywhere. I'm gonna get both hands dirty. Okay, here we go. Start putting it into the pan. Ooh, hear that? I have a feeling I'm only gonna be able to do 4 at a time. So, C is having to do this. Oh, okay. Okay, I'm just doing enough to sear it. And I'm taking it out. The next 4. I can get all of it in the end. Put back everywhere. So hot. Oh. Whew. Very hot. Very steamy. And that's much work than this does. Okay. The oven, no.
Oh, you're flipping
Yeah, I'm washing the hands real quick. My eggs are so so bad. That was an exciting moment. My house is filled with smoke. I was not expecting that to happen. Whew. Okay, so let's see. Next. Oh, there's something. Try again. Okay, so now everything from seasoning is supposed to go in that pot. Okay, so I need 2/3 of a cup of water. One-third of a cup of soy sauce. Oh, this is gonna be fun. This is one of those slow pour bombs. Still pour it. Still pour it. Still. We're done. Okay, and a third of a cup of sake. Somebody chef. Here we go. So again, should have cooked with something if you don't really do it. Oh, that's good. That's good. It's kind of sweet. Sake and 3 tablespoons of sugar. Yeah. Well, I mean, I can see it from here. A little smutty. I was just saying to Mom, maybe we should crack the door. 2 and 3 tablespoons of sugar. Aromatics. And a good stir. And put them go right back in there. Just kind of layer it so that it's almost like okay. Good night. I'm about to be all alone down here. Okay, let's turn that overhead fan off. I've put a simmer, right down for a simmer, and this probably is not going to take anywhere near as long to cook. Because I think the recipe calls for an hour. 10 minutes to braise, did not take that very long. About 1 hour or until there's about 1/4 inch left in the pot. Okay, well. Okay, so I've now made a mess. I've made a very large mess in my kitchen. My spoon rest, because I don't know where the other spoon rest went to. That. Alright, guys, so now I get to peel eggs. When doing soft-boiled eggs, and when you're doing marinated soft-boiled eggs, the trick is to put them in the ice water bath. Wait until the water gets to the point where you can safely put your hands under it or in it, and then peel it under the water. Okay, so I mentioned before that I already had some marinade prepared, which I do. It is in here. And this is basically just sake and rice vinegar and sugar and some water. Or not sake, soy sauce, sorry. And the eggs are just going to go straight into it. So I'm going to start peeling my eggs. Man, you guys cannot see the amount of smoke that is in here, but whew, it is a mess. It is a mess. Yeah, I'm going to start peeling my eggs, and I'm just going to put them straight into that water. Okay. This egg may have problems. You have to be careful with peeling because you don't want to lose any of the white. Is that exciting for you? Exciting, calming for you? But yeah, you get in there. Now, if you research a lot of these recipes, they do call for piercing the bottom of the egg, like the rounded part, very slightly with a push pin, just to make sure that weird air dimple doesn't form when boiling the eggs, but I don't do that because I'm not looking for the most perfect looking egg. I'm just trying to boil my eggs, and I'm afraid I will crack them. So I do that. Okay, so just gently peeling. This egg is like really narrow. Shell feels kind of brittle. Another thing you can do that I read somewhere, which I've never actually tried because I've never really had a problem with peeling eggs, is adding some baking soda to the boiling water, and that helps your, I guess, the shell be softer, less likely to stick to your egg. Boy, that egg feels really soft. Getting to this way sucks. But yeah, that's supposed to help. Something else you can do is, oh yeah, the fresher your eggs, the more likely they are to stick when you're peeling them. So, use eggs that are a few days old at least. If you're buying supermarket eggs, then, you shouldn't have any problem at all. But if you get your eggs fresh from a local, like, farm or something, give it a couple of days before you try making soft-boiled peeled eggs. Because, they're going to naturally be kind of soft anyway and difficult to peel. No need to make it even harder on yourself. But while you're peeling them, make sure you get that membrane off as well, or else it won't really absorb the marinade that well. I'm not keeping track of. Oh. I'm not keeping track of how long it. Over there's been broiling. Braising. Braising is the term where you basically kind of cook it in liquid. You're not really boiling it. Just kind of low cooking it in a liquid. That is braising. It's meant to make meats that are otherwise tough more tender. I should do this on camera. I mean, there's nothing for you guys to look at right now. I'm just listening to my voice. I can't even see the chat. I don't know if anyone's making comments over there. Somebody's making comments. I can see that there's a comment. My eyesight's not great. I'm about halfway through. I guess when I get 3 of them done, get this third one done, I'll show you guys what they look like sitting in the marinade. Now my marinade's a little low, so I don't know what I'm going to do about that. I do know there's a trick that you are supposed to use when, well, the marinade might be low because I don't have all the eggs in it. There's a trick that you use once everything is in there to make sure the tops of them don't float above. But see, these are the eggs now sitting in the marinade. Look at them. Just look how pretty they are, just floating around in there. I'll show you some eggs that I made a couple days ago. I still have 2 of them left. But yeah, so I've still got about 2 hours to go, and I cooked everything I meant to cook. Everything cooked a lot faster than I was expecting. That pork belly especially, because well, my plan was to get a whole chunk, and that would definitely have taken an hour to cook, and about 5 minutes aside to braise or to not braise, brown. Oh, so once I get done peeling, and I come back over there, pretty quick at peeling, so it's not going to take too much longer. Hopefully there's some chat I can respond to. Okay. Egg. Let's see, I've never seen that before for peeling eggs. Are you referring to the baking soda or peeling them underwater? Personally, I think the peeling them underwater part just kind of helps the tiny fragments wash away from the egg. and the water starts to kind of like get in between the egg and the shell as you're peeling. But I think with the baking soda, I really think what it does is it makes the egg shell more porous and brittle and easier to crack off and less likely to stick to the egg. Because when peeling eggs, that's one of the biggest problems you have is that your shell does not want to release away from the egg. You wind up peeling part of the egg away, which if you're doing soft boil can be a big problem because you peel part of that white away and now all of a sudden your yolk is leaking out everywhere. Okay. So that light simmer going on over there. Got one egg left. Boop. Okay. That's the sound of me cracking the egg against the sink because I don't have another egg to crack it against. I usually, like, if I have more than one egg, I like crack them together. And one of them will break and start fracturing. Ooh, this one's peeling very fast. Try not to get too cocky. Okay. And blue, that's the last one. Okay, now I'm going to stick my fingers in here. Oh yeah, there's definitely enough room where if they were all forced to submerge, they would all be submerged. See how they're already kind of getting brownish? And my fingers are getting kind of brownish. Ew. Ew. So, now normally what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to put like a plate or something down on top of them. Now, I don't have a plate that's small enough to go in there. Suppose I could cut. What the trick I did before to help keep the eggs from forming weird spots was to put a paper towel in there, because the paper towel absorbs the liquid and then allows the egg to force the liquid onto the egg, and the egg absorbs the liquid from the paper towel. All right, that'll work. So that keeps you from getting those weird white spots that you get on things that you marinate. When hi, Mr. Pat. Is it smoky? Are you upset because it's all smoky? All right. So I'm putting a paper towel in there. See how it absorbs? It just absorbs that right up. And now it's forcing all the eggs to be in contact with the liquid. Then I'm going to put this plate thingy on top of it, push it down. Now everything is held under the liquid. Okay, so I'm going to rinse my hands real quick. I'm covered in soy sauce. Oh, okay. Now, a couple of problems. The plate is lifting. I have eggs that are up against the side. You can't see that here. There we go. Eggs that are up against the side, and those are going to make spots. So, I'm going to get a little bowl to help weight that down. There we go. That doesn't really solve the problem of the ones that are resting against the sides, but I probably could have used a bigger container. Now my lid won't fit, so I guess I'll just kind of put this over here. Ooh, that pork looks delicious. Stick that in the fridge. Ooh. Stir my pork. Oh man, that smell. The ginger, the pork. Oh, and those onions. Oh, guys, man, I wish we had smell-o-vision. I wish I could share the smell of this with you. Because it would be so amazing. It would be so amazing. Okay, so we got that going. Got everything going. Soy sauce, check. I totally just threw that on the floor. do. I can talk about the ramen. I've been doing things with ramen lately. I will admit to the fact that thanks to Final Fantasy 15, I kind of got really focused on cup noodles, which then my love of ramen kind of got even more intensified from that. If you haven't played Final Fantasy 15, yeah, that's not as good when it's like slightly warm. I'm stick it in the fridge. Oh, where am I going to stick you? I have no room. I have a full fridge. Oh my god, my fridge is so full of stuff. Let's make sure you're fastened to it, and then I'll just gonna do this. Get back there. Okay. What was I saying? Oh yeah, if you haven't played Final Fantasy 15 yet, totally do it. Totally do it. Highly recommend it. Fantastic game. Fantastic. Just great. But cup noodles do play a prominent role in it. I'm not going to talk too much about the role they play because I don't want to ruin anything. But I've always loved ramen. Grew up eating a lot of really crappy ramen, but always loved it. And that kind of reignited my love for ramen. So I started looking into it. I ran to the nearest Walmart and bought like every cup noodle they had and went through a phase where I tried all the different cup noodles and talked about all the different cup noodles. And then I started researching ramen again. I know as much about cooking ramen as I do because I did a presentation for an anime convention talking about Japanese snack foods and how to make them at home. And in the process, I had people, suggest what they wanted me to talk about, and a lot of them wanted me to talk about making ramen. And at the time, the idea of jazzing up your, packaged ramen wasn't as popular as it is now. I don't think even Reddit was really around back then, but I'll get to that in a moment. So I had to kind of, I started the presentation saying, here's the things I'm going to be talking about, here's the things I'm not going to be talking about, because while they are kind of traditional snacky foods, they're not the kind that are easy to just make at home. Unlike, I talked about melon bread, melon pan, and what else did I talk about? I don't remember what else I talked about. I'm going to turn that even lower. Like a low simmer. Melon pan and breads like that. I kind of looked into making Pocky a little bit. Rice candy made, the like mochi, made mochi at home, just stuff like that. But ramen, I was never able to satisfactorily find a method of making ramen at home that I consider to be quick and easy, like, a snack would be. If you want to whip a snack together, ramen was not one of those things. So I skipped over making ramen. So I've always kind of had a love and fascination with ramen, and the cup noodle thing from Final Fantasy 15 this reignited that. And while I was in the process of looking into more different cup noodles and what's the best cup noodle and everything else, I came across the ramen board on Reddit. Now, I don't go to Reddit a lot. The ramen board now, Adventures Academy for the little mobile game, and No Sleep, which is like a creepypasta forum. Those are pretty much my mainstays for Reddit. I don't travel anywhere else outside of those. But the ramen board specialized in talking about taking a pack of just standard ramen, or even Maruchan or top ramen, the really cheap ones that you find at Walmart, and jazzing them up. So that's what I've been doing. I also I got a subscription box called In My Crate, which had, when I got it, it had 4 packets of ramen, a packet being like this, 2 bowls, which is, like the baked ones, 1 cup, and a little heart-shaped silicone mold for frying eggs in. So it was really cool. The best thing about the package was that, it came with there were 2 cool things about the package. One, it came with a booklet that explained what every packet of ramen was, the basic flavors to them, good things to add to them, and how to prepare them. Because a lot of times, I can't really use this as an example, but a lot of times you'll get these packets and everything will be in the language of whatever country it came from, whether it's Japan, Korea, China, whatever. So, trying to figure out how you're supposed to prepare it, it's kind of hit or miss. For you get experience enough with them, you can figure it out. But yeah, the booklet told you everything. The other thing that was cool about it was that everything was straight from Japan. The box itself, when it got to me, had a customs sticker on it because it had to go through customs from Japan to get here. So, yeah, it was true, authentic Japanese ramen. However, the couple of packets that I've tried so far out of it, I haven't been really impressed with. And it was $25 for the entire thing, which I could take $25 to my local Asian market and get a crap ton of ramen that I know I like. So I wasn't planning on getting a second box. I accidentally did because I forgot to cancel my subscription, and now it's on its way to me. But I need to remember to go and cancel that. But one of the other things that I found out is apparently one of the most popular brands or most popular flavors is Shin Ramyun, which is this is in Korean. It is spicy, so if you like spicy things, you're fine. If you don't like spicy things, I cannot recommend this one to you because it is spicy. It's not so spicy that you have to stop eating it every so often. And the funny thing about this is that this particular package and most of the ones you'll find here in the States are made in the USA. So they do have a company here that makes them. You can find these at Walmart if you don't have a local Asian market. You can find them at Walmart. This particular one I did buy at Walmart. It was in a pack of 4 for about $3.75, so it's more expensive than the top ramen. But in my opinion, it's much better quality. The noodles are about the same most of the time. They are, but in addition to the seasoning pack, you also have a vegetable pack in here. Like you get with the cup noodles, vegetables are in there too. You can also, if you go to the Asian market to buy this, you'll find a Shin Black, which is a higher quality version of this. It'll be about twice as much. It won't be quite as spicy, but it's got a third packet of like seasoning to go into everything, and then the vegetable packet has much larger bits and pieces of vegetables in it. So it's very good, very tasty. However, as good and tasty as it is, sometimes you do want to kind of jazz up your ramen a little bit and make everything more fancy. So that's why I decided I was going to make chashu. And I did make the marinated eggs already. I had one of my other marinated eggs the other day, and man, that was pretty tasty. One of the other ramens I had was it was called like hot chicken ramen. I don't know what the official. I do kind of know the official title of the brand, but I can't pronounce it to save my life, so I'm not going to attempt it. But it was hot. I mean, it was like. I love spicy hot things, and I had to stop eating it at a couple of points and just breathe. It's also one of those where the liquid, you pour off most of it, leave just enough to kind of make the seasoning stick to the noodles when you make it. I'm going to open this because I'm planning on preparing it anyway. And I'm just now realizing I have to wash a pan because the pan I was going to cook it in is now dirty from cream cooking. Oh. Why am I having trouble opening this? I don't know why I have trouble opening this. I'm just going to grab the scissors. I'm cheating. I'm cutting. Grabbing the scissors. Cutting. There we go. Okay. So I've cut it open. As you can see, it's got a little vegetable packet. It's got like mushroom bits and little garlic bits and seaweed, and it even has green onion bits in there too. And then you got your you can get in there, seasoning packet. Lots and lots. They call it the soup base. And then your noodle block, which is actually round. I'm not going to take it all the way out because I'm not ready to make it yet. But when we are ready to make it, everything will be there. Okay. So, marinated eggs, or shoyu, tamago, and chashu, or marinated pork. That's what's going to go into my ramen. Um, I think, yeah, I did mention I had a couple eggs in here that I was going to show you guys. Let me see if I can find them now. Where are my eggs going to go? Eggs are, there they are. Yeah, when you live in a house with a bunch of other people, sometimes things don't stay where you put them. Okay. I'll be able to show you guys these eggs. Let's move that ramen. Move my towel. Here come the eggs. Here they come. Okay, so we got 2 brown eggs. Aren't they exciting? Totally exciting. I knew you guys were gonna love that. Yeah, they were just so exciting. And I'm getting the little plate to cut on because I'm being lazy now. I'm getting a little knife out to cut an egg. Can we take an egg out? Now, it no longer really, I mean, you can kind of see faintly. You can't really see it, but there's kind of a faint spot where there was the white dot. But since it's been sitting in there marinating its own juices for so long, you don't really see it anymore. Cut it in half. And then split it open. Now, this, a little closer to the camera. This is what happens when you have a slightly soft-boiled egg and you marinate it in a salty broth and then you don't consume it right away. When I first made it and consumed it, like I consumed it the night I made it after it had been marinating for 6 hours, like this portion was still mostly white, probably around from here, and the centerpiece was still liquidy. Not quite liquidy, but still kind of liquidy. However, the salt starts to gelatinize it. Doesn't that look tasty? Trust me, it tastes a lot better than it looks. If you've ever heard of 100-year eggs or 1,000-year eggs or, eggs of that sort, that kind of happens too. The pickling process for those, or the fermenting process, or whatever you want to call it, the process for those takes, and they're not cooked at any point. They're completely raw when they go into it, but it makes the center portion all weird and centery. But anyway, so we got that. I'm gonna cut both of these so that I know they're already. These were the ones I made before. Beautiful eggs, huh? Okay, so I still have a little under 2 hours to go. And there's not a whole lot going on. I've cooked everything. I suppose I could start doing some dishes. I should put some music on in the background. I don't know if you can tell the TV is off. Everyone else went to bed, so I'm alone in here in the kitchen. And, yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the headset off. I'm going to turn the laptop so that you can watch me doing dishes. So I'm going to move the laptop because I need somewhere to put the dishes. And you guys can watch me doing dishes, which can be very calming and soothing. And doing that sort of thing is definitely self-care in my book. So, here we go. Taking the headset off. My hair. Maneuvering things. Sorry. Thought that might be a nicer view for you guys. Okay, now that I am done running water, I can put my headset back on. Hopefully that wasn't too loud and obnoxious. And yeah, we lost several viewers because that was not very exciting or entertaining, but I firmly believe in cleaning up as you go rather than waiting until you are completely done with everything. Because then you have just that much less to worry about when you are finally completely done. And I don't know about you, but the thing I hate the most about cooking is cleaning up. When I have a huge mountain of stuff that needs to be cleaned up, it really makes me kind of not want to do it. And the longer I let it sit, the longer it takes for me to get around to doing it. And I have no idea where this ice cream scoop goes. So it's going to go in here for right now. And it's very demoralizing. So normally I would have stopped a couple of times to do cleanup, but since I was trying to entertain you guys, I did not. So while it's not a huge amount of dishes, it's still a fairly sizable amount, and I still have a couple things that need to be cleaned up. I moved the pot to a different burner. Oh yeah, you're definitely getting hot. Because
Smoky.
smoky, yes. That would be when I was frying up the pork belly.
Mom and Dad go to bed?
Yep.
Oh.
It's a lot less smoky than it was right after I fried it. I was not expecting it to smoke up as much as it did. But
Got an idea.
is your cat out in the garage
Oh, I'm just going.
waving it?
Yep.
Yeah, we did that a little bit too. Anyway, yes, cleaning up as you go along makes it a lot less demoralizing and antagonizing and just unhappy making. Oh good, finally it's coming back up to a simmer. Yeah, this angle I thought would be more entertaining for you guys to watch the chashu as it simmered. But then, of course, I took it off the burner and put it on a cold burner that hadn't heated up yet, and just made a terrible mess of things. Terrible, terrible mess of things. And, of course, yeah, you guys got to watch me washing dishes, which can be very soothing if you're not thinking about anything, because, I mean, dishwashing is very therapeutic for some people. Sometimes there's not a lot of whole gross things that I have to do while dishwashing. I just let my mind wander. The rushing water, nice white noise in the background, and just kind of let my mind wander while I'm washing the dishes. And when everything's done and the sink is empty, nice sense of accomplishment. So ta-da! All the pots and pans, except for the chashu pot. That's my towel. It's gonna get hung back up here. Alright. Let's move you guys back into the other position. Oh, wait, let me make sure this is all dry. Let's not put my laptop and other electronics onto a wet countertop, shall we? Okay. Feels pretty dry to me. So here we go. Mouse goes first. Then you. There we go. Okay. So, and as you can see, the chashu is starting to simmer up again. little poke. Little pokey stir. Man, that looks so good. And it smells, man, guys, the way it smells. Oh, there's a layer of fat in there. That's okay. That's okay. You're not eating ramen for health reasons. So, let's see, I put that in the sink, I'll wash that in the next go around, put that in the sink, I'll wash that in the next go around. That's my sake, which the stuff in the fridge should be chilled enough now. Did I ever get to the point of the caffeine fast? The point of the caffeine fast is because, you know, I have such a high tolerance to caffeine normally that if I have not done a caffeine fast, you know, I need huge amounts of caffeine just to get going in the morning. If I have done a caffeine fast, then something like a single can of Coke Zero will keep me up till 1 a.m. Now, long story short, I'm not going to go into all the details, but the job I'm currently working, I have to get up at 5 every morning so I can be awake enough to get ready for work and be at work by 6:30. It only takes me about 15, 20 minutes to drive to work, but I'm one of those people that I am not fully awake until I've been up for about 30 minutes. And it's not really safe to drive if you're not fully awake. Hell, it's barely safe to shower if you're not fully awake. For an example, without getting too detailed, trying to move my eggs a little bit so that they don't spot up quite as much. Anyway, without getting too detailed, there was one morning I woke up late-ish. Wasn't too late to, that's why I was going in there today to spit the second way. It wasn't too late to be able to take a shower and then head to work. But it was too late to spend my usual 30 minutes before going to take said shower. So, went in the bathroom, hopped in the shower, caught myself a couple of times just kind of standing there, trying to remember, have I wet my hair? Have I washed my hair? Have I rinsed my hair? Have I soaked up? Have I rinsed off? You know, just every so often I'm just kind of standing there, and I realize I've been standing there for several minutes. So eventually I get out of the shower and start getting dressed. You know, as a female, I'm putting on my clothing. I put on my underpants, put on my pants, put on my shirt, go to put on my bra. I can't figure out why my bra's not fitting right. And then I realize it's because I put my shirt on first. And the amount of time it took me to realize that, yeah, that's not a good sign for your mental capacity. I am not normally slow on the uptake. Unless I have just woken up in the morning. So, while that is continuing to simmer, we're going to get our aromatics chopping board. Now remember, I used a separate chopping board for the pork so that I could keep the aromatics chopping board around. I'm going to get my green onions. I have to do, oh, I dropped one little green onion. You know what I'm going to do with that? You know what I'm going to do? Crunch, crunch, crunch. I love green onions. Okay, that's kind of gross. Did I rinse these? I just wanted to rinse them. Anyway, so I keep getting distracted from my main story. By doing the caffeine fast, it makes it so that one can of Coke keeps me going and keeps me awake. Whereas normally it'd take a can of Monster and a couple of cups of coffee, maybe a 5-hour induced shot or two. You know, man, that's really scary. Okay, it's a beautiful knife, beautiful knife. Not necessarily my favorite, but very pretty. So I'm just gonna kind of. Do you guys want to watch pot? Or do you want to watch me slice? I wish I had a third camera. I should probably get another webcam. But I'm just gonna kind of slice them on diagonal, very thin. There's a cat. Can you guys hear my cat? You hear my cat? Which one of you is over there whining? Depending on who it is, I can come let you out. Unless you're the one I think you are, then you don't get to go out, which is probably why you're whining. Give me a second. I have to take the headset off because it's still too far away. It was you, Brett. Okay, so we have 4 cats, 3 of which are outdoor indoor cats, because that's what they were when we adopted them, and trying to keep them inside was next to impossible. But we have a 4th cat who has only ever been an indoor cat for her entire life. That is so gross. What is going on with that? I don't even throw that one away. It's got like dirt all up inside of it. Throw all that away. Oh, my nicely sliced green onion in the trash. Because I don't want to run the risk of getting dirt. I washed you. Anyway, go back. But anyway, so she sees the other cats go outside, and she kind of wants to go outside, but the few times she's managed to get out the door, she's just kind of frozen on the front porch and stared at the big scary world and decided she didn't really want to be out there. So every so often she'll start whining because she wants to go out, but then you realize which cat it is and you refuse to let her out, and she eventually stops whining. Or she'll whine because one of the other cats are outside and wants in, and she's just trying to get our attention. Because one of our cats refuses to talk. He will just stand there and stare at you until you realize he's standing there staring at you to let him out. Oh, let's see. You make sure you're not a gross, dirty one. Chopping and talking. Talking and chopping. This is where I wish I had like actual chef chopping skills, because I'd be done with these green onions by now. I'm not doing all of them. I'm just doing a couple of them. Enough for some garnish. Okay. Alright, so let's see. We've got the chashu simmering away. Oh, that smells so good, guys. I'm telling you. So good. I got the chashu simmering away. Got my eggs marinating. Got a couple eggs already sliced. Would you be interested in a bowl of spicy rum?
No, I'm not hungry.
Okay. Had to ask. We had chili dogs for dinner. They were tasty. My hair. Don't want to lock your hair. Oh, okay, my hair. Those of you who've known me for a while know I've been growing my hair out. Probably about 4 years ago, I shaved it completely for St. Baldrick's. But ever since then, I hadn't even gotten a trim. But January, I decided I was ready for a change and just had them, cut it to hear. It was like to hear on me. Yeah, it was pretty long. It was like long enough where you kind of have to floof it out a little bit anytime you sit down, which may or may not be a hygiene issue. I'm not gonna go there, but yeah, I went there. Um, yeah, so I had it all cut off, and mailed it off to Wigs for Kids, or one of those places. It's almost midnight, guys. I have less than an hour and a half. I think I'm gonna start making some ramen. So I have multiple eggs I can put in this. Okay, so it says boil 550 milliliters, about 2 1/3 cups of water. Add noodles, soup base, and vegetable mix. So basically, I want you to cook everything together. Okay. After you bring it to a boil. 550 milliliters. Let's see. Which one of you has milliliters on it? Okay, so this has milliliters. 500, 700, 750. So if this is 556, 657, okay. So 550 is going to be this little line right here. That's fine. That's fine. And there are microwave instructions, so you can make it in the microwave if you so desire. I do not so desire. If you so desire. The microwave instructions are different enough to, yeah, see it says pour 500 milliliters, about 2 cups. So that's like almost a whole third of a cup less in the microwave. And you know why? Because a lot of it boils off while you're boiling it in a pot. Okay, so I have chopped some onion, which, let me show it. Chopped onion. Chop some onion. I have my eggs. The 2 marinated eggs from earlier in the week, and then I will pull one of the other lightly marinated eggs. Oh, hey, guys, you want to see the caramels? See the caramels? Wonder, it's still pretty soft. Yeah, it's still very soft. But I think it's about ready to go in the fridge. I got the pork still simmering. Ah, man, that smells so good. Tilt the camera just a little bit. Yeah, there. See the other pot. Very, very exciting stream, huh? Oh, it says 4 viewers. I think I count as 1, maybe 2. Next time, I will need to have a whole series of things to make, and just get to them as I get to them. Or I could have baked something, because there's a nice rising process. Maybe I'll make melon pan next time. Which, if you don't know what melon pan is, it's that bread that looks like a melon. Or it's like a small roll or a bigger roll. And it looks like a melon because it's got like a crosshatch on the top of it. And the trick to that is because like the outer portion is like a nice, sweet, crusty, type thing, and then the inner portion is very bready. The secret is that the inner portion is just like a yeast roll that you've made. The outer portion is like sugar cookie dough that you then drape over the yeast portion and kind of fold it around it, and then when you bake it, it forms over and crackles and everything else. That was one of the things I made for the Japanese snack foods panel, and it was very interesting. I talk about kind of having to have a little bit of knowledge of cooking to be able to just take any recipe that you find online and make it properly. Because there are certain things like with this particular recipe, it goes gives you the ingredients list, and one of the most important things when you're making a recipe that you've never made before, read it all the way through so that you have an understanding. It's a cat. So that you have an understanding of what it is you will be doing, because otherwise you run a very high risk of screwing something up. For example, this melon pan recipe. If you hadn't read it all the way through, it takes you through the steps of, it gives you all the ingredients, takes you through the steps of making the yeast portion and letting it rise, and then forming it into the little balls and letting those rise. And then it takes you to the steps of making the sugar cookie dough. And part of the sugar cookie dough process is letting it chill for like an hour and a half in the fridge. Now, if you've already made the yeast portion and you've gone through all the rising processes, then you stop that there to then make the sugar cookie dough and put it in, I call it sugar cookie dough, but it's not exactly sugar cookie dough. And then you put it in the fridge for an hour and a half to rise or to set. Your buns are then sitting there for an extra hour and a half after it's already done all this rising. It's just not going to be good. Um, they're going to overproof, and you're just going to have a mess on your hands. But if you didn't read through the recipe all the way through, and you had no knowledge of baking, you would have realized that you would have followed the instructions to the letter and wound up with a mess and not understood why it got screwed up. One of the other things I've run into years and years and years ago, we lived in Germany. My family did. I'm an army brat. Grew up in Germany for a few years. One of our brothers was born there. But while we were living in Germany, my uncle lived in Germany. He was also in the army. While we were there was a plum cake that we had. It was delicious. It was amazing. It was just slightly sweet, not too sweet, and it was just really really good. So many years later, here we are in the States. I want to say this was 4 or 5 years ago. Based off of today's time, 4 or 5 years ago. My uncle decided that's what he wanted for his birthday. He wanted a plum cake for his birthday. So, what is that bunching up there? So we looked around online for a plum cake recipe. And eventually, because at the time there weren't a whole lot of recipes, eventually my mom found one that was in German and was translated into English. And of course, there was some things lost in translation. But one of the big things that you had to understand was that it called for plums, but the plums it called for were German plums. Like, it didn't specifically say German plums, it just said, plums. And if you didn't know, if you've never had experience with German plums or the cake or anything like that, German plums are very different from American plums. American plums are bigger, softer, juicier. German plums are very kind of small, tart, firm. So we knew, just from that knowledge, the fact that it was calling for plums, it meant German plums because it was a German cake. We needed to use underripe plums. We needed to find plums that weren't fully ripe and use those, because otherwise they would be too soft, too juicy. They would make the cake base, which was more like kind of a biscuity, cookie, cakey layer. Not a full-on cake, but a cake-like layer. But we knew if we didn't use the right kinds of plums, we used American plums, it would just be a mess. So timer. So yeah, and then there were a couple other little things in the recipe that we had to adjust for because we're weird Americans and we're not Germans. But we were able to do that because we had enough knowledge. it's just kind of one of those things that the more you learn and the more you cook, the better you get at being able to judge things, and the more you understand that not every recipe is meant to be taken verbatim. You'll find a lot of recipes out there that presume you already understand certain cooking terms. Like it'll tell you, okay, do this, and then braise your pork. Well, what if you don't know what braising the pork means? Or it says, you know, in the ingredients, it'll say, a cup of carrots julienne. Well, what if you don't know what julienne means? Which is just, sliced very, very fine, and like almost matchstick type slices. And if you don't understand all that, then, things aren't quite as fun. So cooking definitely has a learning curve, but one thing I love about cooking is that it is so open to an adaptation. There's nothing wrong with cooking and changing the recipe, or like cooking for the first time and not following the recipe to the letter. The only thing is that you most likely will not get the intended result. You'll get something that may still be good, but if you do a recipe and change things and then go, oh, that was terrible, don't blame it on the recipe, because you changed things. Unless you follow the recipe to the letter, or you've had it before, um, you really have no idea what it's supposed to be like. So, let's see, got about an hour. Watch me eat some ramen. Do that. That'll be exciting. I'm gonna bowl up this ramen once it gets done simmering, and kind of try to make it look pretty. I'm trying to decide because oh, excuse me. Okay, I'm gonna use one of these bowls. I am gonna use a deep bowl, just because it's gonna hold the ramen better. There are other bowls, but they're like kind of shallow. I'm afraid they won't hold all the liquid, and I do like liquid. 2 minutes left in the cooking process. I'm gonna need a container to store my chashu. Let me go find one of those. I need to take my headset off because while this has a long cord, it's still far enough away where I need to get my. Get off the table! By God, cats! You know better. Be right back. What do you guys think? Give me that look. You know better, Brad. Okay, so I have a container of my chashu, which I think I'm going to go ahead and start packaging up. I'll look for the. Oh yeah. Ginger, dim onions, pork. Okay, so one of the gingers I didn't slice properly, apparently. Oh, well, that looked fine. But yeah, it's like kind of making a fan. Well, now I'm like holding it together, but yeah, it like fanned out. Can you see that? Oh, that's my ramen. Stir, 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 stir. Okay, turning off. tuned below. Okay, let you sit for a moment. Oh, oh god, oh god, oh god. I just hold my laptop. Yeah, I just totally splashed ramen soup all over my mouse pad on my laptop. Ooh, that was not good. Okay. So let me finish scooping up the chashu so that it's there. Okay. Do this. Do this. Alright. Let me turn the camera again. Doop, 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 doop. Doop, doop. For view. There. Okay. Alright, so that's the ramen. Just the ramen. Okay? Alright, okay. Yes, it smells amazing. Like I really wish that I could just waft this smell over to you guys. Let's see, my marinated eggs. Take those out. Or take one of them out. In my jacked up. Try not to dribble anything on my laptop again. Poor baby. I'm so sorry, Lappy. Okay, there. Take that out. Move the. Okay, so. Wow, it's still kind of smoky in here. I'm bring the other marinated eggs back over so we can do a compare and contrast. Alright, I'm going to take the centermost one out. Oh, wow. Okay, see all those spots? Yeah, it's definitely very spotted. Maybe you won't be so bad. You're slightly spotty, you're not as bad. Okay. So, I'm slightly concerned because these are very soft. They're not very firm at all. Okay, so, let's see what happens. I'm going to try and hold it together while I slice through it. But the chances are very good that this sucker is going to just... Oh. Wow, wow, okay. Oh. That is perfect. Perfectly prepared. That exactly the softness I was looking for. Oh, perfect. Okay, so we got that. Oh, man. Oh, this is gorgeous. I'm going to put just one of these other eggs in there for some contrast. I'm dropping my chopsticks everywhere. Oh, okay. So, let's try and turn you. Oh, you're so hot. You're so hot. Here comes the chashu. And some green onions. Okay. All right, so let me see how to shine a light on the subject. Where's my phone? All right. So, see that? See how pretty that is? I'm definitely taking a picture. Mm-mm-mm. Oh god, guys, that looks so good. Okay, now I need to try the chashu. Okay, so put my eggs to the side. Bring the bowl over here. Oh, guys, this is the moment of truth. Wow, yeah, that was definitely worth it. Mm. I tell you what, this makes this simple bowl of ramen just seem like it's something you buy in a restaurant. Maybe not a great restaurant, but okay. Definitely thumbs up. Good use of the chashu. Good recipe there. Definitely gonna make that again. Put the rest of my marinated eggs into 6.5 minutes is perfect time for the kind of soft-boiled eggs I like. So that's good. That worked. The other eggs aren't bad. They're just oh. You want to spend the next hour watching me eat? You do that too. That other marinated egg just looks kind of sad now. Yeah, this one just like all the yolk is just everywhere. Oh my god. Okay, I'm gonna do that with the green onions. Chashu is disappearing. Come back here. One another bite. Mm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I put my chashu in this container. Oh no! I hope you have a safe trip. Nothing like unexpected driving to put some stress on you. Like I said, have a safe trip. Thanks for hanging out. It was nice chatting with you. And thanks for the follow too. I saw that. You're still hot. Yeah, you're still hot. Oh. Now I'm not drinking that because it's spicy. The steam is getting to my nose. The rest of my green onions there. Okay, that's the one for my chashu. Which I'm going to... Yeah, I don't have a spot that's safe and won't be... Okay, and let's see if I can get the rest of the aromatics out and into this container. I hear you, kitten. What do you want? course, she's not going to answer now. Oh no, the human was talking to me. I better shut up. Ooh. Now, the thing about chashu, or pork belly in general, is that it is very fatty. Because, like I said before, it's basically bacon that's not yet bacon. So there's a whole lot of fat in it. You notice I did not add any oil, which is part of the reason why it smoked up so much. But it definitely should have had some oil added to it. However, there's quite a puddle of oil in there. Oh. Once that cools a bit, I can put that in the fridge. Ah, come to mama. One thing I've never really understood about the marinated eggs is, like, how are you supposed to eat them once they're in your ramen and they're cut in half like that? Now see, the yolk in that one is very gelatiny, and I can kind of scoop it out. The other one, no, there's no scooping that baby. Ah, that's perfect. And then the whites are firm, so yeah, you don't have that boogery white thing going. But with, like, the marinated ones, do you just, like, bite into them, or are you supposed to chop them up with your chopsticks? Or I've kind of done them both ways. Made half a dozen of them, and these were the last two. But it's like, because I kind of want to eat it with the ramen. These aren't the best chopsticks for ramen. They're very narrow. They're very cooking chopsticks. I'm about to get a fork because I'm going to be lazy. So good, guys. And I probably could do this with a Maruchan. Okay, so that was a success. Very happy about how that turned out. I'm going to put that to the side now. Or what am I going to do? What am I doing? Oh, yes. This is what I'm doing. The caramels. I'll show you real quick how we tend to count them here. That's not the knife I'm looking for. Aha. Alright, so funniest thing. Pampered Chef had this knife here. And let's change the view of you a little bit. There we go. Had this knife. And it's supposed to be like a cheese knife. But we use it for cutting caramels because it is fantastic for that. Because it goes down straight in. It's chiseled so it forms cut. And it squares off. So it is perfect. We just kind of push down like that. And push down like that. Yeah, see, they're still pretty soft, but they're not so soft. Ah, here we go. See that? See that? See it? There's not enough light on this side. Anyway. So, that. There we are. See how soft that is? See how it's just kind of bending in my hand? I'm going to switch back to the other view. See, it's just kind of squishing. I'm barely applying any pressure to it at all. That's a sign of a good caramel. Oh my god. Those definitely turned out. So I'm very pleased with the outcome of all my stuff tonight. Everyone said the hot fudge was good. I don't know, I didn't try it myself. And then the caramels came out good. And the eggs, perfect. And the chashu, great. Oh, man. Oh, yeah, it definitely does need more time in the marinade. But texture-wise, oh, man. That is just perfect, 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 perfect. If you're not the kind of person who likes soft-boiled eggs or half-cooked eggs or, however you want to refer to it as, by all means, feel free to cook it all the way through before putting it in the marinade. But the marinade does add that extra umami flavor, which is a Japanese term for it's kind of a savory something that like mushrooms have it and I tell you what, this is great. So what am I going to talk about now? Still got 50 minutes. And I'm going to put that back in view of that. I drank some of my sake. I meant to put this back in the fridge. Because I topped off my glass and... Okay. So... cooking with alcohol. Other things... Oh, yeah. Why don't I do that? Why don't I talk about the other things I've made for my other presentations? I talked about, caramels, obviously. I made caramels for you guys. Usually for my science candy making panel, what I do is I'll make different homemade candies, and then I will get some store-bought versions, and everyone can compare and contrast. Now, I'm not cruel enough to try and compare and contrast the salted whiskeys versus just standard caramels off the shelf. But like I said, I do have a caramel recipe that is just your basic standard caramel, and we compare that to those, the craft versions that you buy in the little squares, and you unwrap them, and melt them down for like caramel apples and stuff like that. But so caramels are a standard staple for me. One of the other things that I make for that particular panel as a compare and contrast is cinnamon hard candies. Hard candies are very simple. They all have the exact same bases. It's the granular sugar and the liquid sugar, water. That's pretty much all that goes into them. And then towards the end is when you add your food coloring and your flavoring. So the main differences cooking-wise between that and caramels is obviously you're not adding all the protein items. And you cook it to a certain temperature, but you're trying not to brown it. So with the caramels, you cook it to it. You don't measure the temperature when you're cooking the sugar base until after you've added the proteins, because it's going to be different. It's going to raise the temperature or lower the temperature again, and then you got to cook it back. But the hard candies, you cook it to that temperature, and then you add your flavoring and your food coloring, and then you can either pour it out onto a cookie sheet and then cut it. Just keep cutting it until it eventually holds its shape, or you can pour it in molds, or whatever you want to do with it. I usually do cinnamon hard candy because it's really easy to find cinnamon candies, and throw some red food coloring, and then so you've got the flavor compare and contrast between the store bought and the homemade. Now, what I've found is the homemade has a much stronger flavor right at the start, but it doesn't really carry through. The store-bought candies they don't have a strong flavor, but it carries through and it's consistent all the way through the consumption. You'll find that out to be true with pretty much every store-bought candy you get. They're all made the exact same way. That's probably one of the pros to getting a store-bought candy is that you always know what you're going to get when you buy it because they make it in such a way that it's the exact same way every single time that you get it. So that there's a lot of pros and cons to both. Um, the third thing I make for the presentation, as far as something I talk about, are marshmallows. I didn't make them tonight. Like I could have made them tonight, but I didn't. One reason being that it does require a mixer. You can either do a mixer by hand, or you can do. My family has a standing KitchenAid mixer, but boy, those things are loud. And I didn't think any of you want to be subjected to the amount of noise that would make, even if I turned off the microphone. So I opted not to do the marshmallows. And pretty much the thing that makes marshmallows is you make the sugar syrup, and then you add it to gelatin. So the gelatin, and then you beat it, and the gelatin forms the bonds that cause the bubbles with the sugar. The sugar flavors it as being sweet, and it just eventually starts to fluff up because as it cools down, the air pockets start to build and build and build and build. If you use a handheld mixer, it does fluff, but it doesn't fluff anywhere near as much as it does with the standing mixer, which is why I tend to use a standing mixer. If you love yourself, don't bother trying to use a hand crank. Just don't. It's not gonna. Yeah, you'll get a marshmallow that's about that tall. Yeah, that'll be more like nougat than marshmallow. Not bad, but not what you're going for. So I've done those for the panel. I do those every year for the panel. Obviously not doing it this year because I decided I wanted a year off from doing any sort of presentations and opted to sit out. So those are the three that I do for the panel, and then I do the salted whiskey caramels just for people to taste. And I've done Turkish Delight, which is one of those candies where if you've never had it before, it's really difficult to know if you did it correctly. And on top of that, even if you have had it before, like you've consumed it before, if you've never made it before, it's got this one point that the only way I can explain it is terrifying. There's just one moment. Because basically, it's the sugar syrup thing. Pretty much every candy you run into that you make, you're gonna have sugar syrup, unless it's fudge, which we've already talked about. That's a texture thing, but you're cooking the sugar syrup with a bunch of cornstarch. I mean, like a ton of cornstarch, and you're cooking it, and at first it's just kind of smooth and silky, and it's like milk, very liquidy, very thin. And there is a point where it will start to thicken. But it very, very quickly goes from thickening to, oh my god, this thing is rising out of the pot like Cthulhu and it's going to attack me. And it's a terrifying moment because one minute you're just stirring it and you're waiting, and then all of a sudden it's just coming up at you. So that was exciting. I did make the Turkish Delight, and I flavored it multiple ways. I flavored it. Some was orange. Some I did use rose water for, which my family was convinced I was trying to play a prank on them and feed them soap because it tasted like flowers, and flowers is not something you're supposed to eat. And then of course the texture of Turkish Delight is very weird. It's not like a candy, so they weren't used to it. I've only made that a couple of times though because like I said, it's very that moment of fright is just it's too much for me to take sometimes. But I've made it and I've brought it to conventions and people have enjoyed it and thought it was interesting. And that's what I make for the Sweet Alchemy panel, which is the history of the industrialization of candy making and then the science of candy making. And then for my cooking with alcohol panel. Now, one of those people that I don't like anyone to feel left out. Part of the reason that I make the hard candy, where am I hearing? I'm hearing something weird. Anyway, part of the reason I make the hard candy is because then there's no animal products in it. Like the gelatin, I guess I technically make the marshmallows using some other form of gelatin, but I haven't wanted to experiment with that. I keep leaning into the ramen shot. And then the caramels obviously have the cream and butter. So I make the hard candies that way people who are lactose intolerant or vegan or anything like that have something they can eat. So I'm all about choices. I'm all about including everyone. I spent about a decade not eating. Probably the best way to describe it is anything on four legs. If it had less than four legs, so two legs like a bird, chicken, duck, quail, that sort of thing, I was fine with it. If it had more than four legs, like crab and shrimp and that sort of thing, I was fine with it too. But like pork and beef and veal and all that sort of thing, I didn't eat any of that. I got sick off a hamburger and I couldn't stomach it. But anyway, so I understand the feeling of sitting down and watching everyone eat something that you can't eat for whatever reason. So I've always tried to keep options open. So when I do my cooking with alcohol panel, now granted everything's got alcohol in it. You're not going to come to a panel talking about cooking with alcohol and then not want to cook with alcohol. I mean, really? I haven't ever had anyone complain about it. But for the cooking with alcohol panel, I make wine jelly, which is exactly what it sounds like. It is a jelly, like you spread on bread, made out of wine. Oh, someone's sneaking around behind me. I've done it. Usually, the first time I did it, I did just the red wine jelly, and it's basically an entire bottle of wine, and then not gelatin, but the pectin, and then sugar and some what you call it, lemon juice to just kind of cut the sugar a little bit, and you cook it. And part of the recipe that I found for it recommended putting a little bit of butter. I mean, just like a little touch of butter into it to help keep it from scumming. What scumming in is when you're making jellies is that the bubbles froth up and then they kind of slightly solidify and then they leave like a substance behind. Putting the little bit of butter in it helped make it so that the bubbles, when they came up, were viscous enough where they popped almost immediately, and therefore they weren't exposed to air long enough to sort of solidify and then cause the scum. However, I wanted to make the jelly completely vegan, so I added just a touch of olive oil, and that worked. It still prevented the scumming, but now I didn't have to worry about people who couldn't have any lactose products or animal products or anything. So this past year I did a white wine, I did a red wine, and then I did Zinfandel, a pink white Zinfandel, which is actually pink. So I had 3 different kinds of jelly. I also make a beer bread, which I usually find some fancy, schmancy, flavorful beer. I think this past year I used a chocolate peanut butter beer. Can't remember where it was from. But and it's a very simple recipe that I use. It's basically just, flour and a couple other things and then the beer. And you fold it all together and you put it and you bake it. I, however, cannot stand the taste of beer. Like I'm a very big drinker. I can drink all day long. But beer, I can't stand. I'm not huge on wine either. I'm a hard alcohol girl all the way. But I cannot stand the taste of beer, so I've never really been fond of the beer bread, so I don't really make it or eat it outside of the convention. However, it is fantastic slathered in butter or in the chili. I also included, I would normally just buy gluten-free crackers for everyone to try the jelly on if they don't want to try the beer bread, because the beer bread was totally I mean, it was a real bread. It wasn't, some whatever. Um, but I also do. Hard alcohol is the best alcohol. I mean, really, why bother otherwise? May as well be drinking water. Um, One of the other things I do is a red wine cake, which really is the easiest thing to make. If you guys have red wine in your house and a box of cake mix, you can make it right now. You basically just take your box of cake mix, make it the exact way it tells you to make it, only instead of using water, you use the wine. That's it. That's all. That's all you have to do. Follow the directions exactly, just use water instead of wine. So be like Jesus, turn your water into wine and go to town. Moist, flavorful. It does just have a hint of the red wine. It is just fantastic. I tend to make it with a box of gluten-free cake mix, so that the people who can't have gluten have something that they can eat cakey wise. Because I work with a couple of celiacs, so I understand that not all people who say they can't have gluten are just saying it for the diet. Well, I can't have gluten because it makes me fat type thing. My boss, he can't have gluten because it sends him to the ER. So I always have to have that option open. And then, of course, the salted whiskey caramels, which are very, very popular because people can take those with them. But those are examples of the different ways wine affects your cooking. Where the jelly is pretty much all wine. I mean, I don't think you add any water to it at all. It's just the wine, the sugar, some lemon juice, and then the pectin. So if you want to make a recipe for jelly that doesn't use the wine, you probably should just go look for a whole new recipe. I would not leave it out. Because I don't know. It calls for you use an entire bottle, but it calls for reducing part of it down to a certain level so that the flavor is more concentrated. And I don't know how that would work with, say, if you wanted to make apple jelly and you're using apple juice instead of grape jelly using grape juice. I don't know how that would work, reducing it down, if that's going to change consistency. You're better off just going ahead and finding a jelly recipe for a fruit as opposed to trying to use the alcohol recipe. With the beer red, definitely I would not make that recipe and leave out the beer, because the beer in that recipe is used for leavening so that it will rise up. Again, just find a beer recipe. Cake mix, you can leave that out, no problem. You can substitute any flavor of any drink ever you want, because really all that particular liquid is in there for is as a liquid. It's not it's not depending on the alcohol to do anything. You could use whatever. You can use apple cider. You could use whatever in there that you want, other than water. I mean, you can use water too. I wouldn't recommend using milk, because the milk will have proteins in it and make changes that way. But yeah, so that's a recipe where you could easily swap out, because all the alcohol is there for is the flavor. And then the caramel recipe, like I talked about earlier, I don't know. You could probably safely leave it out because it's only 2 ounces of alcohol. But from my personal experience, I had some weirdness happen leaving out the alcohol, and it's probably just because I screwed up. Wine and beef stew is amazing. Wine and beef stew is just fantastic. I also like throwing some wine in my scampi. Like a lot of recipes for scampi basically just tell you butter and garlic, but I like to throw a little white wine in there too. I love using alcohol for flavor. Someone asked me if I could use a vodka in caramels. I wouldn't use just vodka doesn't really have a flavor of its own. If you wanted to do a flavored vodka, like if you wanted to have chocolate caramel, so you put a chocolate vodka in there, that's a thing. Or strawberry, or whatever, whipped cream, or some wacky, weird flavor. You could totally do that. But as far as just straight vodka, I wouldn't, because you don't taste the alcohol. you're tasting the flavor in parts, which is why, you know, like whiskey alcohol or whiskey caramels are there, you know, to give you a taste of the whiskey. I use the honey whiskey because I like the smoothness of the honey along with the whiskey flavor. And then, like I do the Crown Maple because I like the hint of maple along with the flavor of Crown. And the black rum, you know, it's just kind of. I did that when I used to have an Etsy store where I sold my caramels until they got too popular and I just couldn't keep it up. But man, that's a problem everyone wants to have, right? Uh, it was a little bit before Black Friday, and I wanted to do something special for Black Friday, and I thought, well, I could do something with black salt on it. Hey, they make a black rum. Let's throw the black rum in there. So it's basically just kind of a rum flavored caramel. But oh, got half an hour left, and my ramen is like absorbing up all the liquid. Look at this. Look at my chashu. Look at my delicious, delicious, yummy chashu. My eggs. I'm gonna eat this egg. Just eat it by itself here and get it up with the chopstick. Chopsticks don't want to pop, right? See, these are just slightly marinated. And this one, it was a much darker brown when it went into the container, but it got lighter as like the soy sauce marinade just kind of absorbed into. Mm. Mm-mm-mm. If you guys like eggs and ramen, go for it. Totally. Just okay. So remember when I was talking about how the vegetable package is really cool? These are carrots. Can you see that? It's a carrot. Actual, like it's recognizable as a carrot. It's got like a little carroty vein. It feels like a carrot. And I got my green onions in there. I don't see any of the mushrooms. Oh, I mentioned Shin Black earlier. Like this is standard Shin, but Shin Black is like the higher quality, fancier one, costs twice as much. It has whole slices of garlic dehydrated in the vegetable pack. I was tempted to eat one as like a garlic chip when I first opened it, but I wanted to make sure I kept the integrity of the ramen as it was meant to be consumed when I first made it. I like doing that. I like to taste something the way it's intended to be before I start screwing around with it. But yeah, those were nice. Rehydrated, warmed through with the ramen. Oh, they're definitely very nice. If I were feeling like treating myself, I would definitely grab the black one again and go for it. See, yeah, before I did the caffeine fast, having this would just kind of have, I don't know, it'd been a thirst quencher. It would not be keeping me awake like it is. Oh, so I hope you guys were entertained. I mean, I'm coming up on the last half hour. I'm a little past it. Like I said, next time I will just have a whole list of recipes that I want to do and work my way through them. And then if I get to them all, I get to them all. If I don't, I don't. All this ramen. Oh, I am getting pretty close to wanting to go to bed. My thanks to the Odd over there for letting me take part in this. This has been awesome. This has been fun. I might stick around a little while to watch the next stream and eat my ramen. I have this thing about eating on camera. It's just kind of, it bugs me. I can't really do it. I've watched too many anchors eat on camera. I work for a TV station, so I watch a lot of that. Oh, I'm glad you guys have learned stuff because that's my favorite part about doing the presentations that I do. I have, and if I run into them this year, I'm going to be so ashamed of myself for having bowed out of doing my presentation this year. But there's this couple who go to every single one of my panels. Like they go to the exact same panels every year, and while I try to add new stuff to them, it's still basically the exact same thing I talk about until I get to the QA, and then we talk about other stuff. But I encourage people to ask about anything because cooking is a passion that if I didn't dislike cooking for other people who aren't my family so much, because like I'm one of those people that I'll go to a restaurant and unless there's something in the meal that I literally cannot eat, like cilantro, I'm one of those people that it tastes like soap. It makes me gag. I cannot eat cilantro. Or blue cheese. It just tastes like musty mold. Like I can't do that. Cilantro, blue cheese, and I can't think of anything else that I'm just like I cannot eat that if it is in my food. For the most part, whatever is there, I'll take it as is. Like if I see something that has cilantro or blue cheese, I'm more likely to go order something else and try to ask them to swap or leave it out because I believe that whoever created the dish created it with a certain flavor palette in mind, and to make any adjustments, it it changes what the dish is supposed to be. So you're not really eating the dish as the way it's supposed to be eaten. In my head. Now I'm not saying that people who need to have things changed and shouldn't ask for those substitutions. Dietary wise, I'm not saying that at all. More power to you. But the folks who come in and order like I want the chicken parmesan, but I don't want the chicken breaded, and I want the sauce on the side, and I want this cheese instead of that cheese, and I don't want that pasta. And like by the time they're done, it's a completely different dish from all those different substitutions. It's just kind of like, uh, and blue cheese. Either spelling is correct. It kind of depends on which blue you're talking about. I used to work at the fresh market in the deli department and became the cheese expert by the age of 19. But yeah, blue cheese, bleu, the BLEU, generally is referring to like a French style. So if you're just talking about blue cheese in general, you're more than welcome to call it BLUE. And the different blues in it, which they're all mold variants. I'll be completely honest. I understand that cheese itself is rotten milk, but and there are some mold styles that I'm okay with. Like I can eat a brie or a camembert, and those technically have mold on the rinds. But just the blue cheeses and the Roqueforts and not Gruyere. Gruyere Swiss. I'm not big on Swiss either. Um, Roqueforts and it's on the tip of my tongue. Stiltons and those sorts of things. They all have different mold veins in them. All have different types of mold, which gives them all their characteristic flavors and everything else. I can't. None of them. None of them. It's just. Ugh. However, the blue cheese thing is not necessarily the cilantro is genetic. No one in my family can stand cilantro, and they've done studies, and it is definitely a genetic thing. Uh, if one of your parents is predispositioned to not eat cilantro because it does taste like soap, then you are more likely to have it taste like soap as well. Blue cheese is kind of one of those things that it's an acquired taste. I've never had the inclination to acquire it because why would I want to eat something that went moldy on purpose? However, my mother absolutely loves blue cheese. My uncle absolutely loves blue cheese. Maybe as you get older and your taste buds die off, it's okay. I don't know. But she can't stand ranch, and I slather ranch all over everything. Um, that's the other funny thing about me is I am a huge foodie, but I am also a junk food fiend. I will totally be on top of every single new item that comes out. I ate the naked chalupa from Taco Bell, the naked chicken chalupa from Taco Bell, like day it came out. So I can eat just about any cheese as long as it's not too smelly. Um, some Swisses I can eat, like I can eat a baby Swiss because it's not very Swissy, and I can eat Swisses if they've been mixed in with something else. Like I can do a mushroom Swiss burger because the mushrooms overpower the flavor of the Swiss. Or a lot of fondues have a Swiss and other cheese blend, and I can do it that way. But yeah, Swiss, the really funky smelling cheeses like Tilsit or Limburger or stuff like that. Feta is a hit or miss with me. It can't be too feta-y. Like if it's too strong, then I can't do it. But like a milder feta, I don't mind. Or if it's in something, I don't mind. And blue cheese is just like I ordered a pizza one time. At the time, it was a buffalo chicken pizza, and I asked them to leave off the blue cheese. I didn't even ask them to swap it for anything else. I was just, could you leave off the blue cheese? And it comes to me, and I don't really pay attention to it because I'm talking with my dinner companions, and I take a bite, and the first thing I taste is just must. Like musty socks. It's just, so I stop, and I put it down, and as soon as I could get the waitress's attention, and I'm looking at it now, I can clearly see, blue cheese all over it. As soon as I get her attention, asked her to come over, and I said, ma'am, I really hate to do this because, I understand this is a huge pain, but I asked for no blue cheese on this pizza. I'm going to have to ask you to take it back and get me a pizza that has no blue cheese because I cannot eat this. She goes, oh, it doesn't have blue cheese on it. It has gorgonzola. At which point I had to explain, no, gorgonzola is a type of blue cheese. Yeah, I can't, that's not going to go either. So that's always fun when you have to stop and send your food back because they did something like that. But other than that, I'm usually pretty easygoing. I had a lobster spring roll one time that I was really excited about eating because I love lobster. I took a big bite and it was full of cilantro. Just, ugh. I almost spit it onto the plate and had to trade it with someone else at the table. Warn my mom about it. Sometimes we go to restaurants and she'll want some ceviche and we'll have to make sure there's no cilantro in it before she orders it. And if they say yeah there is, then we'll skip it. Because we're both those kinds of people that we don't like to be picky with the wait staff. Because their jobs are hard enough as it is without without your customers getting all finicky. But anyway, that was a long roundabout way of saying that is why I wouldn't want to cook for people, because people just get so picky. Like I wouldn't mind cooking in a restaurant, like just being able to cook all day long, but having picky folks. Like if I could cook in one of those restaurants where they say no substitutions, it is what it is. We only serve it the one way, then I'd be fine. I'm losing my voice, guys. I've been talking for 4 hours straight. I haven't done that in a while. Even when I do my 24-hour WoW marathons, I take little breaks. But yeah, it's been fun. It's been great. I love talking about cooking. I love answering questions. If you ever want me here again, definitely give me a holler. And I'll find new and exciting things to cook and talk about. If marshmallows didn't take so long to cure, because they do have to cure overnight. Marshmallows. If you ever decide you want to make marshmallows, I'm going to give you some tips just for my personal experience. I'm not actually making them now, obviously, but when it tells you to grease and powder your pan, usually they have you make like a cornstarch powdered sugar mixture to powder your pan. Powder the flip out of it. Just, put all of your mixture in there, shake it all around, get it well and good and caked in there, because you would rather have too much in there than not enough. Too much just means after you put your stuff in, you go to flip it out, now it kind of poofs and makes a cloud of powdered sugar and cornstarch all over everything. Not enough, it will stick to your pan, and you're going to sit there doing the wiggle number to peel it out all the way down. And then it's got like weird tears and bubbles and stuff in it, and it's not fun, it's not good. But yeah, when they tell you grease and powder that pan, err on the side of way too much, because otherwise it's not fun. The other thing I recommend doing is I usually get like a big giant bowl. We have this big bowl that we use here for salads and stuff, but I'll put that bowl in. I'll put some powdered sugar and cornstarch in it, I'll put the mixture in it. And when I start cutting, I have a pile on my cutting board, and I'll just kind of dip the cut ends in it, and I'll throw it in the bowl. That way, once I get done cutting all of them and putting it in the bowl and put the lid on the bowl, I can shake it and put even more powdered sugar and cornstarch all over everything. And that definitely cuts back down on the accidental, oh, I didn't quite powder it enough when I was cutting it. Is like, as you're starting to get to the end of this huge batch of marshmallows you just made, you're just like, I just want to get this done. I don't care. Chop, 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 chop. And it's really easy to forget to powder aside, and then it will stick to everything. It'll be terrible. That's the other thing. Marshmallows, when you're prepping them, will stick to everything. If you're using a mixer, like a hand mixer, make like a wax paper shield or something, because you do not want to get marshmallow on anything that you don't want to get marshmallow on, because it will be there for a while. It's going to take you a while to scrub that sucker off. The last time I made them, my niece decided she wanted to come over and help, and bumped the mixer as I was like lifting up the guard, and it shot marshmallow all over the place. So yeah, 5-year-olds and marshmallow making are not the world's best combination. But yeah, other than those two things, marshmallows are fun. They're amazing. They're delicious, and they're very impressive. And if you have a standing mixer, you make a marshmallow that's like yay tall, and it's homemade, and they're just so good. You throw a little mint in there at the end of the mixing process, and you have a mint flavored marshmallow that you can then dip in chocolate and have mint chocolate marshmallows. Or if you throw a little strawberry flavor or whatever flavor, when you're making most candies, you can throw a flavor in at the very end and mix it in and just have flavored whatever. And you can find the flavors everywhere nowadays. Even Walmart carries a wide variety. I remember when I first started making the hard candies, I used to have to go specifically to like the Wilton sections of the craft stores to find the little vials of cinnamon essential oil type flavoring. And now you go to Walmart and there's like 18 different flavors in their cake making section. So technology is wonderful, guys. I love it. I love the world today. It's so much easier nowadays to do all these cool things than it was, 5-6 years ago. But yeah, I was talking about that too. The first time I made caramels, I made them just for a general convention because someone said, hey, whiskey caramels would be good for this convention. So I decided to impress them and bring whiskey caramels, even though it didn't quite work out the way I wanted to because of, the sauce accident and the dropping on the floor accident and the toffee accident. But people were still impressed. And then one of the guys who had, talked about it asked me if I wanted to do a panel for a convention called Anacrocom. Because they were putting together what they were calling the etiquette and indulgence track, which is all about manners and food and tea and chocolate and that sort of thing. I was like, yeah, sure, I totally do that. And someone else needed somebody to talk about glassware for her alcohol. Like she was talking about straight up mixing drinks alcohol, and I have a large collection of glassware, just different shapes and sizes of glasses. So I said, yeah, I'll come in and talk for a few minutes about the different glasses and show them off and that sort of thing. So did that. I named my panel Sweet Alchemy. The history and science of candy making. It was just a 1-hour panel at that point. And then the following year, I was asked to do it again. Did it again. And then the year after that, they wanted to know if I could do, more hours. I said, well, I could technically stretch Sweet Alchemy into 2 hours. And then I can throw in Eat Your Drink, the cooking with alcohol panel. So, and did that for a couple of years. And then I, squashed the Sweet Alchemy back into a single hour and just did the cooking with alcohol. I had one year where I've only done cooking out with alcohol twice because did it 1 year, and then the following year they were kind of like, oh, we're trying to lean away from less family friendly stuff. And I was like, okay, well, it's not really, I'm not doing alcoholic stuff. It's cooking with alcohol. It's not cooking alcohol. I'm not talking about making Jello shots or anything. Which I think they understood last year when they asked me to do it again, and so I did it again. This year I was just like, nah, I'm tired. I kind of just want to go to a con and just enjoy the con. I'm gonna have to work all the other cons I go to this year, so may as well do one where I'm not doing any work. And then they, kept forgetting they had already asked and kept asking. But yeah, so the end of the month, next week, Thursday, I leave, and we'll see what happens. I got 10 minutes left. Last chance to ask me any questions, comments, questions, comments, concerns. That's usually how I wrap up my daily videos. I do daily YouTube videos just for the hell of it every morning at work, talking about random stuff that's going on. Conventions I'm planning on going to. Things I want to do. Oh man, I totally meant to do. My BFF offered to do a conversation about booking flights to Europe, in London in particular, because RTX London. And I meant to do a video talking about the Guardian application process, because I've done that a few times now. The Guardian application process, not the videos. I did one video about what to do now that you're a Guardian. But I've never done a trying to get to be a Guardian, bracing yourself for the massive responsibility that is. I meant to do that. Like 2 weeks ago. Shoot. I did apply for London, so that'll be interesting to see if that happens. I asked my students that, or do you guys have any questions about life, the universe, anything? Yeah, I'll say that at my cooking panel. So it was like, it doesn't even have to be about candy making or cooking with alcohol or whatever the panel was talking about. I was like, well, you just want to ask me a question about anything. I'll talk about darn near anything. I mean, I have a lot of friends who, just have all these different interests, and I've never gotten people who like are only interested in one thing and they just kind of ignore everything else. I mean, I sort of understand it, but it's also kind of like the world is just so big and massive, and how are you supposed to really enjoy anything if you don't learn about everything? I mean, I would rather know a little bit about everything than everything about one thing, because I mean, then it all starts tying together, and and you're a writer, so you understand the concept of wanting to know as much as you possibly can about everything and how the world works, because it makes you writing better. I'm not a professional writer, but I have done some writing in the past. At one point, I wanted to be a writer, but I don't know. I don't have the attention span for it anymore. But yeah, it's just the more you know, the better you can understand, and the better you can connect different dots. It's like I once talked to a friend of mine. He used to run Anime Week in Atlanta, and now he lives in Toronto, and he helps someone else run the convention that's in Toronto. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head now, but we were at a party a couple of years back at AWA, Anime Week in Atlanta, and he introduced me to this guy, and we were talking about some stuff. And I asked him what his day job was, and he goes, "Oh no, it's really boring. You don't want to hear about it." I said, "No, go ahead." And he goes, "I work at a steel mill," and I'm like, actually, that's really fascinating to me. I've never known anyone who's worked at a steel mill. Can you explain, like everything that goes in that process? Because I'm sure there's a lot of like really complicated things in there. I'm sure it's not just you heat it up, you pour it out. I'm sure there's stuff that goes on with that. And he was just kind of shocked that I really wanted to know about it. I'm like, no, dude, this is my chance to talk to somebody who knows about something that I don't get a chance to talk about. So. And I wouldn't think to go Google how do steel mills work, because, I tend to be Googling 20 other things that I'm thinking about. So no, sure, pour your knowledge on me. That's awesome. Spent about 45 minutes talking about the steel mill. And he later said that was like one of the most surreal conversations he's ever had at an anime convention, is talking about, his job. So, yeah, 5 minutes. Killing time. Maybe we'll just stare at each other. We have a staring contest. See who blinks first. Probably me, because I can't see you guys. My ramen is like absorbing all of the liquid. Do you see that? There's like, so what is the next subject going to be? What else is Keegan there? Are you next? I'm presuming you're next. Or what are you up to? Are you paying attention? Or are you getting set up? I bet you're getting set up. I bet I'm about to get booted off. Ooh, Atlanta to Vegas. It's only $279. Supposed to be going to a convention at the end of July along with RTX at the beginning, DEF CON in Las Vegas, but I have to fly to that one. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and log out, playing some music and stuff. Oh, you're the one creating songs. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna stick around for that. All right, well, I'm gonna sign out so that it gives a little bit of a buffer between now and you guys doing that, and I can eat my ramen and try to stay awake. So again, it was great. It was fun, and if you guys want to hang out some more, if you can find me, I totally meant to put my name up somewhere, and I guess I just forgot to do that. It's SDR, ESDEELR. I'll just type here in chat because it's. Oh, yep, Odd's got it. Yeah, that's my Twitch and Twitter and everything else. So here I go. Bye. Bye.